morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Friday, August 13th, 2004. The City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Members, it is now nearly 10:20 a.m. and we have 9 members present, one shy of a quorum. But this being Friday, as is customary, we have a number of special presentations and recognition ceremonies scheduled. I'd like to recognize today's meeting by recognizing Councilmember Weiss.
No, you got to come with me. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm here today to introduce to the Los Angeles City Council and City Government the new Dean of the UCLA School of Law, Michael Schill. We should all be very, very grateful that Mike Schill has ended up in Los Angeles at the head of what I consider to be the top law school in Los Angeles. And he's going to do a fabulous job for a school that has been under such capable leadership for the past several decades. He is now going to take it to the next level in this new century. Mike Schill has an extraordinary record as a legal scholar, as an educator. Most recently, he's been at NYU, where he has focused as a scholar in areas that are of great concern to most of this council. Mr. Garcetti, for example, you would be interested to know that Dean Schill specializes in housing and community development. He has focused extensively in his scholarship on land use law and regulations and how to help the urban poor, how to help the very sorts of people that we as a council have focused on in so many of our efforts over these past 3 years. It is a very, very good day for the UCLA School of Law and the UCLA community, but it's also a very good day for Los Angeles that Dean Schill is now with us. We had a reception just a little while ago. Councilwoman Misikowski was there, Councilmember Gruhl, and Rocky Delgadillo, our city attorney, were there to help welcome Mike Schill to Los Angeles. I want everyone associated with city government to know that this is someone who is about the most eager participant in the affairs of his community that you could possibly meet, and I have every expectation that we will see him back in this building, perhaps in these chambers, one day soon, contributing to his new city. So please help me welcome to Los Angeles the new Dean of the UCLA School of Law, Michael Schill.
Ms. Misikowski.
Before you speak, let me just echo what Jack Weiss has said, and also, members, just to confirm a little bit, I mean, obviously we just had a little brief chat during a reception, but immediately Dean Schill was saying, who can I talk to in the city who can take me to all the neighborhoods? I want to see all of these communities firsthand. I want to see and feel and know what's going on in the city. This is not going to be a dean who's going to sit in an academic ivory tower. This is a dean who's going to be engaged, roll up his sleeves, work with us. I was telling him that we probably ask for some of the more difficult opinions around here, around this horseshoe, from our city attorney relating to land use. And Rocky said Dean Schill was going to be one of the ones he was going to call to make sure that he got those opinions right. So I agree with you. This is going to be a great day. It is a great day for the city of Los Angeles. I think it's going to be great for Angelinos who care about the quality of life, who care about what we can do as in advocacy, in law, in this world to make it better for all of us. And I just think the future students who are going to come through UCLA are just going to benefit from that, and we are all going to benefit here in Los Angeles with that kind of activity, that kind of dedication, and couldn't think of a better way to say welcome, and we hope we see you very, very often.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Dean, welcome to Los Angeles. We like to talk a lot and tell you how great you are, so when we come and ask you for something, you'll be willing to do that. But I want to add, excuse me, my congratulations and our our real interest, I think, as Ms. Misakowski said, and as both Jack did upstairs as well as Rocky, our close relationship with UCLA, in particular UCLA Law School, and your knowledge about housing and land use. I mean, that is critical to every community in the city of Los Angeles, and to utilize some of the, of not only your knowledge, but I think your commitment and dedication to improving communities and your experience in New York. So welcome to Los Angeles. I think you told me this morning you've been here 14 days and it had been sunny and beautiful every day. It's like that every day of the year in Los Angeles. But we welcome you, and we look forward to working very closely not only with you but the rest of the staff and faculty and students at UCLA. And I'm a little biased. The best in the world is UCLA. So thank you very much, and glad to have you here.
My turn. Council President Padilla, Councilman Weiss, and honorable members of the City Council, thank you again for the warm reception and recognition today. I'm deeply honored to be the first dean of the law school to stand before this distinguished body. While the UCLA Law School and the City and County of Los Angeles have enjoyed a mutually beneficial relationship over the past 55 years, I believe that the best is yet to come. Law schools have a special obligation to engage the community outside of our walls. We train the next generation of leaders, some of whom are in this room right now. Our graduates are the people who mete out justice, who provide for peaceful resolution of disputes, who make commerce possible, and who write and administer the laws. I believe that UCLA in particular, as the largest public law school in a major American city, has a special obligation to serve the public interest. In many ways, we take for granted the many ways we already do this. Our graduates play an integral role in this city in terms of federal service, local service, also at the state level. They serve their communities in Los Angeles City Council, members, county supervisors, city and district attorneys, school board members, federal agency heads, as well as members of Congress. In addition, maybe, I'm not sure you know this, but currently more UCLA graduates are serving in the California State Legislature than graduates of any other school. Our faculty is engaged in research and advocacy that touches upon almost every aspect of public life. I was mentioning earlier to some of you, I sent out an email recently to my colleagues and said, how many of you are doing things in the city of Los Angeles that are serving the public interest? How many of you are our students and alumni? And I got back a blizzard of emails which filled my inbox. We are a school that is engaged, and what I want to do today is to recommit myself and recommit the law school to serving the public interest. As Jack mentioned, I'm someone who has spent my entire public life studying urban problems, in particular housing and development issues, and in particular those that confront low and moderate income families who are struggling to make ends meet in large cities throughout the country as well in other places. And I enthusiastically recommit the law school to working on important public and urban problems. We will do this through the most ambitious public interest program of any law school, which provides financial support to students to work for the community at great personal sacrifice. We will do this through research. We will do this through our professional activities in the bar. We will do this through the UCLA in LA program that was created by our chancellor, Al Carnesale. And we will do this through our commitment to do everything within the law to train, admit, and train students who come from all walks of life, who come from all races, all ethnicities, and importantly, all areas on the political spectrum. Thank you for your invitation today. I look forward to working together with you as we move forward into a new period, which I hope is a period of greatness for the law school and greatness for the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is really fun. Hey, so you get to keep going.
welcome to Los Angeles. For our next presentation, let me recognize Councilmember Cardenas.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and members. I have the great pleasure of acknowledging the California Highway Patrol that is now 75 years old tomorrow. Come up, gentlemen, please. Don't they look good for 75? We have with us Deputy Commissioner Manny Padilla, Captain Bill Siegel, Assistant Chief John Larson, and from our West Valley office, we have Captain Craig Klein and someone who's known throughout the San Fernando Valley, our friend and Officer Leland Tang. As I mentioned, the Department of Highway Patrol has been in existence for 75 years. By the act of the legislature and signed by the governor, we have this esteemed body that now protects us not only on our highways, but they're very involved in the communities. You remember the show Chips? Well, on that show, it was maybe a little bit over the top, but there is some truth to the matter is that our Highway Patrol aren't just relegated to working the freeways and highways of California. They are in fact involved in the community. As a matter of fact, my office has been involved with giving away child seats to the tune of hundreds. Not only that they're giving away child seats, but they won't give away a child seat through their program unless they teach the family how to use it properly. And that is very important. What they are is about public safety. Not only do they care about children in car seats, but they care about families, they care about California, and they are certainly the body of Highway Patrol throughout the country that is held in high regard like no other. I know this for a fact because when I was in the state legislature, I got to go to different parts of the country. And once in a while, some legislators who were working on some very important legislation that dealt with their highway patrol wanted to talk to our highway patrol, and they wouldn't move that legislation until they got our opinion. So that gives you an example of the quality of service that were rendered here in California, and most importantly, they bring a certain amount of prestige and respect to the state of California that we take for granted. I want to give Deputy Commissioner Manny Padilla an opportunity to speak. As a matter of fact, he lives in Sacramento now, but he said it was pretty cool to come down because he's right here from Lincoln Heights. Manny?
Before we hear from the Highway Patrol, let me call on Councilmember Gruhl, who I think wants to add her accolades as well.
And thank you, Councilmember Cardenas, for acknowledging the CHP. As you stated, it's much more than looking in your rearview mirror and saying, oh no, there's a CHP behind me. They do much more than that. We appreciate that they're on the roads ensuring that people are driving safely, that they are there when there are accidents on the freeway. But I too, as you have, Mr. Cardenas, had several child safety days in my district, and we've been able to not only distribute free car seats to those people who cannot afford it, and as well as CHP has been able to provide them. But it is the installation. It's so critically important because I think, Leland, I'm going to probably say the wrong number, but it's over 50% of the car seats that are put in people's cars are improperly installed. And then if it doesn't take 20 to 30 minutes to install it, you're not doing it right. And in fact, I have to admit that my husband had put his in right. The people who put mine in, it was not correct. And so when we had our day, they installed it properly. But we're having a big event in October, which is, again, to provide that education. At the event that was in your district at Balboa, a lake in the park there, we had hundreds of cars that came through. We were doing with coordinating with Assemblymember Levine in that area. So it's critically important that we support them and acknowledge their 75 years because they protect us. Their eyes are on the road looking out for us. And these gentlemen and women out there participate in many community service programs that are critically important. and even Leland has become Santa Claus in my district in handing out toys around the holidays. I know he doesn't look like Santa Claus, but boy, you should see him in that Santa Claus outfit. So I want to thank you for acknowledging them, and also send my appreciation to your dedication and commitment to this city and the entire state of California.
Mr. Ludlow?
Thank you, Madam President. First, Councilmember Cardenas, thank you so much for taking the time to acknowledge the Highway Patrol today. And I wanted to say, as the former Deputy Chief of Staff to two speakers of the California State Assembly, how fond I've always been of the Highway Patrol. My days working with Spike Helmick and others have just been days that I'll never forget. One of the things that that I had an opportunity to really sort of delve into and talk to is the issue of safety. And I think sometimes so many people forget how dangerous your job is. Two individuals come to my mind that you may recall, Zeph Valdovinos and Officer Bruce West. Both of them were struck by cars, and in Zeph's case, thrown over a bridge. And still to this day, can't use his hand. And I can't tell you how shocking it is to see the kind of dangers that you all run into doing something as simple as trying to, in some cases, issue a traffic citation on a freeway. But I think both Councilmembers Cardenas and Gruhl said it best. You're out there advocating for the safety of the public on a daily basis. The tragedy that we saw yesterday is just all too often a scene that you all have to respond to. And I think the public forgets sometimes how traumatizing it is for your officers to see that type of bloodshed and things that can be avoided just by the simple function of putting on a safety belt. I've been in the car seat inspections that you all have initiated, and I can't tell you how honored we are to have you here today. Wish the agency lots of luck. The badges are looking shiny today, and that's one thing that I know you guys are always very engaged in, is making sure that you're professional from top to bottom. So we like to believe we have the best agency in all of America, LAPD, but I know they welcome you here today, and continue to do the good work you do. And again, our hearts go out to the role of the officers and their families, and we know it's very dangerous, very tough, but we appreciate the work that you do. So thank you, Mr. Cardenas, for bringing Highway Patrol in here today.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlow. And Mr. Cardenas, now let's hear from our officers.
Well, first of all, I'd like to send, or Spike sends his regrets, Commissioner Spike Helmick. As he prepares for his retirement, there was a lot to get done this morning, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to attend. But I certainly welcome the opportunity to come home for the day, because it gets me away from the madness up in Sacramento, and it's always nice to come home. So thank you very much for that. And I seriously and sincerely thank you for your very kind comments, and especially for the recognition that you bestow upon our organization today. On behalf of the men and women of the California Highway Patrol, I can't thank you enough for all that you do to support our endeavors, and I assure you that we will continue to provide the professionalism and level of service that you've come to count on. And thank you again very much to Councilmember Cardenas for recognizing us today. Thank you so much, sir.
Now we're going to hear from our West Valley team.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Council President Padilla, Councilman Cardenas, and honored members of the City Council. First of all, I just have the good fortune of coming up here to accepting the resolution. The real work is done by the men and women that actually work for me in the West Valley area. So I'm certainly here to accept this honor on their behalf. Thank you very, very much. I feel very, very honored that I have an assignment where I get to serve the city of Los Angeles. I'm a Valley boy myself, and I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, so for me it's really, I am home. I'm very, very fortunate. One thing I would like to announce for everyone in the audience today is we are having an open house at my office in Woodland Hills. It's located on DeSoto Boulevard, just north of the Kaiser Hospital, which is north of the Ventura Freeway, for those of you that might be familiar with the area. And it's going to be this Saturday, tomorrow. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we're going to have workshops and safety shops and fingerprinting for the kids, and lots of food, beverages, motorcycle demonstrations, et cetera, et cetera. So I invite all of you and your families to come on out and join us tomorrow, again, 10 to 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before I give out the awards, what I would like to do is remind us all that we have over 7,000 CHP officers protecting us every single day. In addition to that, they have led the way in perfecting the program of the BMW motorcycles, and that's a program that in fact is a safer bike both for the public and also for the officers. And when I was in the legislature as a freshman, I was fortunate to break the deadlock to try to get that program running, and now we have thousands of bikes on the road that are safer for the officers. And the one thing, the reason why I mention this is because there's some little nuances that we can make a difference in government. Every time I see one of these CHP officers and I get a chance to talk to them and I see them get off their BMW bike, ask them how they like it. They have rave reviews about the bike, but the one thing that they tell me, they say, Councilman, the one thing that makes the biggest difference to me is the fact that this bike is a smoother ride and my body can handle being on the bike for many more hours, which means that when that person goes home at the end of the day, they probably have more energy to play with their kids and do the kinds of things off duty that unfortunately that this grueling job takes away from people who spend that much time. I'd also like to send you back with a question. I've never asked Spike. I've known Spike Helmick, the commissioner. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being and a great representative. He's going to be retiring in another month, correct? Does that make him the first and only commissioner CHP has ever had? Was he the original commissioner from 75 years ago? I'm not sure, but if I could send you back with that question, if you could have him get that answer back to me, I'd like to clarify that for the record. So we're going to give you these resolutions. Hold on to that. You've earned these resolutions on behalf of the City of Los Angeles. It's the least we can do to thank you for the men and women for putting their lives on the line for us and for the wonderful, wonderful work you do on and off the highways for all of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas, and thank you to our great CHP officers who are with us day in and day out. Our next presentation will be Councilmember Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm being joined momentarily by a wonderful group of young people who have just been recognized by the Board of Public Works. Colleagues, if you recall during the budget process, we continued a program this year for the second year, program that we sort of revived last year, and that is the Public Works Summer Internship Program. And so I'm joined today by Commissioner Cynthia Ruiz from the Board of Public Works, and a number of... We just confirmed her the other day for another term. And a number of students from throughout the city who have been participating in the program. And the reason I think it's important is not just because it's a positive example of what young people are doing and are capable of in our city. I think it's also a good example of bringing young people from throughout the city together for a very important announcement, but also because it's very critical to the future of the city of Los Angeles. We have conversations around this horseshoe about the need for better transportation in the city. We have conversations in these chambers about the need to build additional housing in the city of Los Angeles. We have conversations here in City Hall about the future supply of water and power for our growing population. All these infrastructure challenges require engineers and scientists to help us solve those problems and to meet those challenges. And while we have some tremendous talent in engineers and scientists and the engineering and technical firms throughout the city of Los Angeles, we're also looking forward to the future. And who is going to be the future of problem solving? Who's going to be the future of improving upon our infrastructure than the young people in our high schools and in our classrooms and in college today? And so that is why it is a worthwhile investment for the city of Los Angeles to have brought back this internship program. And so we want to recognize all the students. There's 21 students who participated this year, along with 10 private engineering companies where they are gainfully employed, not only learning, but contributing to the various projects that they're working on. And to tell us more about this project, I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Ruiz, and then also to Sonia Sanchez, who's been selected as the student representative to share a few words. Commissioner?
Thank you, Council President Padilla. This is a very exciting program for me because really the young people are the way of the future. And I'd like to thank all our private engineering firms that have partnered with us: Engineering Systems, MWH, CDM, Dean Ryan, CH2M Hill, URS, HDR, Parsons Brinkerhoff, Somas, and Mars. And I'd also like to thank the Xerox Corporation for sponsoring a lunch for the students here today. And now I'd like to turn it over to one of our student interns, Sonia Sanchez from Belmont High School. Sonia?
Hello, my name is Sonia Sanchez, and I'm one of the high school interns that have been working on MWH. And it has been a very good experience for me, as well as for everybody else right here. And we really appreciate it. We've been doing different kinds of activities, like going to Hyperion wastewater plants and the Terminal Island wastewater plant. We've also been having computer training for PowerPoint, Excel, and ArcView. I would just like to thank everybody here, everybody that's been part of this, because without them, we wouldn't be here. It's been just a great opportunity. Thank you.
Colleagues, these are our future, sanitation directors, general managers, Department of Water and Power, heads of ITA. You're looking at them right here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Padilla, and thank you, and congratulations to the great job by the students. Our next presentations today will be by Councilmember Perry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Standing with me today is a very wonderful person, and her name is Ms. Phyllis May. She's joined by her mother, Leela May, and one of her grandchildren. Her father, Marcel, couldn't be with us today, but I wanted to mention his name too. Phyllis has worked for me for over the past 3 years in my field office located at 47th and Broadway, and she has worked very, very hard to see that the needs of the constituents of the 9th District are met. She always brought her great passion, knowledge of the community, and desire to help people through her work to work with her every single day. She also always remembered to make us all laugh and did her best to ensure that every constituent's voice was heard. While she's leaving the 9th District field office, I am glad that she is not leaving our city family. She has moved on to a new venture that will enable her to continue good work in the 9th Council District and for South Los Angeles. The Public Works Street Services Division is extremely lucky to have Phyllis May there as part of their team, and I feel very blessed to continue to have her working and serving in the 9th Council District to ensure that our lots and our alleys are clean. And I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to talk about Phyllis today because she's such an extraordinary person, but I also believe that what she represents to people who might be watching Channel 35 means that your dreams can come true if you work hard enough and you care and you demonstrate those gifts and share them with others. And so I know that she will continue to make us all proud in her new position, and I just wanted to give her some public recognition for that today. And before she introduces her family, I'd like for Phyllis just to say a few words.
Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be up here in front of this podium. I didn't never think I had a chance, but it's my second time. I thought I was going to lose something when I left Jan's office, council member's office, and but I'm really gaining something, and I'm grateful to be hands-on, to be out there cleaning some of the alleys and streets out there in the 9th District. And with that, that's all I got. Oh, this is my mom. This is my mother, Miss Leela May, and also, let me start over, because the honor should be given to her for driving me and keep pushing me, telling me that I can be the best that I can be.
And your grandson.
This is my grandson, Keyshawn May.
Very good.
Okay.
All right. And I know Phyllis looks too young, but Phyllis has 3 children, and she actually has 7 grandchildren. And I think you're raising 4 of them, aren't you, Phyllis? 2 of them. So she's a busy lady, but I just wanted you all to meet her, and hopefully the folks out there in TV land are taking this all in, because she's an exceptional woman. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Let me next recognize Councilmember Bernard Parks for presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It gives me a great deal of pleasure and honor to have today as John Harris. Many of you have been the beneficiary of his work. He's been almost a 40-year employee with the City of Los Angeles. Born in the City of Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley, educated at the Cal State Northridge, joined the city in 1969 in fiscal operations of the Los Angeles Police Department. He then was promoted in 1972 to the CAO's office, where he spent 32 years. We have all used his services as a budget analyst. He's worked for several departments in the city: street maintenance, personnel, sanitation, information services, and also the council and several other departments. During his assignment to the council as the budget analyst, he met his future wife, Linda, in the city clerk's office. I think they call that converting an on-duty relationship with but the statutes have passed. He spent more than 5 years in the CEO's office as a physical plant group, planning the 5-year capital improvement program, the budget, and automating the data processes. As part of his 32-year career at CEO, he spent 8 years in the finance group, which helped the CAO implement the budget reporting and analyst support system. He was instrumental in receiving the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation for 4 years, and that was an honor that we brought he and many members of the budget staff to council within the last 3 or 4 months. And he successfully directed the CAO's finance group for 3 years, demonstrating strong leadership qualities, providing direction, particularly in difficult budget years. He also, now in retirement, his #1 challenge in putting away all of those finance committee reports is he has one goal in mind, and that's reducing his golf handicap. He'll be leaving city services in August of this year, and so we wanted to present him with a resolution in which the entire City Council and elected officials to thank him for these 34 years of dedicated service between the CAO's office and LAPD, and to say that he's going to be missed, and particularly as the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, we certainly rely on his services. And so before I give him this, I want to ask Bill Fujioka, wherever he might be, to come up and say a few words. Where's Bill? He's working. Okay, well, we're going to find Bill, and while we're looking for him, maybe some other council members. Okay, come on, Bill. Yeah, she's videoing with the video camera. Right? Come on, Bill. Oh, there she is. Make some comment.
Thank you very much. I was busy in the back room, but first, Thank you for taking this opportunity to honor John. John represents, I think, the best in our office. He's been with the CAO for the vast majority of his career. He's a person who sits in these back pews and in the back and up in our office who does analysis upon which you make your critical decisions. In the back here are other staff from the CAO who came here for based on their respect and admiration for this man. But for myself, John's a guy during budget who I'd walk in every single day, every morning and say, find me money. Because as we've gone through our struggles the past year, he's been our linchpin. He's been the key member of our finance team who has helped us put the budget together. So today, my personal thanks to him. I offer the thanks from our office, and we thank you for honoring John. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Parks, Mr. President, and members of the council. It's been a real honor to have worked with you and for you for all these years. It's been a very challenging and rewarding career, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I want to thank also Bill for being a terrific boss, and Ellen Sant, my other boss, and all the CAO staff behind me. It's been a pleasure working with them as well. And I just want to say thank you. I appreciate this resolution very much today. And I think I will stop counting beans and start counting golf strokes. Thank you.
We'll go back and take some photos.
Okay.
Congratulations. For our next presentation, let me recognize Councilmember Hahn.
You and all your family. Come on. Mr. President, colleagues, today is a day that the City of Los Angeles has an opportunity to honor, to thank, to wish well a 56-year veteran of the Los Angeles Fire Department, Stancil Jones. It's unbelievable when you talk about this kind of incredible service to the fire department, to the City of Los Angeles, to the residents. And when I tell you a little bit about his history, it's really quite amazing. He has really been in the history of Los Angeles. He was appointed to the Los Angeles Fire Department in November of 1948. And during those 56 years, he certainly has moved up in the department ranks. He's served as a firefighter, an apparatus operator, and an engineer before becoming a captain in 1961. He's worked all over this great city, starting in South Los Angeles, then moving to downtown, then to Fire Station 65 in Watts, then to the harbor, where he worked on our great Fireboat 1. He retired from Fire Station 112 in San Pedro just a couple months ago in May. While serving our fire department, Captain Jones worked on a number of significant and historical incidents for our city. He's worked on the Bel Air brush fire, the 1965 Watts riots, the 1972 Union Oil refinery fire, the 1974 Starfish Tuna Cannery fire, the SS Sanzania fire, the 1978 Mandeville Canyon fire, the 1982 Dayton Canyon fire, the 1985 Union Oil fire, the 1988 San Pedro Berth 73 Wharf and Fish Boat fire, the 1992 Los Angeles civil unrest, the 1994 Northridge earthquake, just to name a few. The captain not only has a great service to the city and to the fire department, the captain has an amazing family, which speaks to his ability to be a great dad. He had 13 children, and many of them and many of them are here today. He has 2 sons, and his son-in-law and his grandson Kelly are all firefighters. Yeah, let's hear it for the family tradition. But I'm closest to his daughter Stacy Jones, and I think he's very proud of her as well, as Stacy is the highest ranking woman at the Port of Los Angeles, serving as the Chief Harbor Engineer. So it's a great family tradition of service and leadership. Captain Jones, your service to this city will probably go unmatched, and we owe you an incredible debt of gratitude. Thank you for all your years, and good luck to you, your beautiful family, and enjoy your retirement. And before you say a few words, I'm going to let Deputy Chief Mack speak. Say a few good words.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hahn, and members of the council. We really appreciate this opportunity to bring Stansel up here. And a lot of numbers have been thrown around, but one of the numbers is actually a part of history in that Stansel is now the longest serving professional firefighter in the United States. It's amazing. And you know, we are truly happy that he's part of our history. Here in Los Angeles, we have a very colorful history to begin with, but now Stansel's part of that. And just kind of a little note before, he even became a firefighter when he was 22. He had served 2 years in the Navy during World War II in the South Pacific. So at a very early age, Stansel obviously had a calling, and he's been a dedicated civil servant for many years. So Stansel, we really appreciate that. And in particular in Council Members Hahn area, he's been down in the harbor 40 years. He's been both a good neighbor as well as a good neighbor in the fire station. And one thing we did with the PD, we kind of threw something over at the PD this morning, bring enough people to match his years of service. So we see how many people they had to bring. So anyway, Stansel, and to the members of the council, thank you so very much.
Mr. Labange.
Chief, Chief Mack, there's a detective over robbery homicide who has like 52 years or something, so he's never going to catch Stansel Jones. Congratulations to you and your family, and what a wonderful history. The longest serving firefighter in the United States. That's something very special, but I think it also helped that you worked down in San Pedro. Because there's a close-knit San Pedro family that really takes it. You're not getting up at 3 in the morning for those trash can fires in my district off Hollywood Boulevard. That's right. But listen, congratulations to all your family. What a wonderful thing that you've done and accomplished. I never thought Smiley Wallace, I think he had 45 years when he had 50? He had 50 when he finished at Fire Station 42 in Eagle Rock, so you beat him by all those years, and God bless Smiley, and hope you have a long retirement. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd like to make 2 points. First of all, I'd like to thank all my friends and relatives, contemporary firefighters, Councilman Hahn, Councilperson Hahn, Labange, and all of you gentlemen and women for coming and supporting me. Secondarily, I'd like to probably give you the insight in how a 55-year veteran of the fire department feels about a community. I was born and raised and educated in Los Angeles at 42nd and Vermont. I went to a Catholic boys' high school at 72nd and Hoover. It's been closed for 30 years.
Mount Carmel?
Mount Carmel High School. I've seen 8 chief engineers. That's the general manager of the fire department. And I could stay 55 years because of these people, because of their vision and their courage and their support by this legislative body. The fire department, the police department, and all the departments rise and fall on your support. And I'll say that 55 years, it was a pleasure to serve the citizens of the city of Los Angeles and work with and for the fire department, the council, the police department, our brothers under the skin. And there's a special little part of my heart that says that I love everyone in this city and every brick that's made it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. And as our firefighters retire to the press room for some pictures, let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Hahn, Labange, Ludlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Vitagosa, Whiteside, Padilla. 13 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session. We still have, colleagues, about 5 additional presentations to conduct this morning. But what I'd like to do, unless there's an objection, is go through the agenda and dispense with consent items so we can release city staff back to their workplace. Mr. Clerk, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Reyes moves. Mr. Cardenas seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Ms. Miskowski moves and Mr. Park seconds.
Mr. President, do you wish to take public comment at this time?
Let's dispense with consent items. We'll come back to public comment.
On the regular agenda, item 1 is an item notice for public hearing.
Members, item number 1 is now before us, and I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on this item. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed on item number 1. Anybody wishing to call this item special? Seeing none, let's open the roll on item number 1, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Mr. President, items 2 through 6 and 16 are the commission appointments. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Let's hold them temporarily on the desk. I know several of the commission nominees are here for questions, if any. We'll come back to them in just a second.
Items 7 through 15 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Members, items number 7 through 15 are before us. Public hearing has been held in committee on these items, and we have committee reports with recommendations before us. Motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Do we have any requests for specials? Mr. Parks.
No, Mr. Chair, just on 7, we'd like to have that sent back to Budget and Finance so it could be tied to a larger package of unfreezes.
Any objection? Seeing none, item 7 is so referred. Next item, please. Or any additional specials on 8 through 15? Seeing none, let's open the roll on those items, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Members, all matters being approved today are going forthwith.
I want to double forthwith number 9 then.
Well, if you forthwith it double, it bounces back to us.
Triple.
So item 16 is being held on the desk. That's a commission nominee. Mr. Clerk, next items.
Items 17 through 43 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration, and there has been an amending motion on item 39 that has been circulated.
Okay. Items 17 through 43 now before us, and I do not have requests
from Ms.
from
Hahn,
members of the
please.
public to address the council on these items. Public hearings are open and closed. Requests for specials, Mr. Labange.
17 special for Ms. Hahn.
Okay, 17 call special. Mr. Garcetti.
Item 36, please.
36 for Mr. Garcetti. Ms. Miskowski.
Mr. President, I would just like to move 39A. It's a motion that's been distributed. It's a technical amendment to correct an account that is able to be acted on.
Okay, without objection, we'll consider item 39 as amended. Any other specials? Seeing none, on the balance of the items, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved, and again, being sent forthwith. Next item, please.
On the continuation agenda, item 44 is an item for which public hearing has been held.
Members wishing to call item 44 special? Seeing none, let's open the roll on item 44, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. And colleagues, I also just want to remind us that we do have one item special meeting agenda. We're not going to go into the special meeting at this time, but please be cognizant that that too remains for our consideration today. Let's come back now to the presentation segment of our agenda and recognize Councilmember Labange next. Okay, Mr. Smith, are you ready with your presentation?
What is the certificate? Thank you, Mr. President. You may recall a couple weeks ago that I brought to you the Northridge girls softball team that was going back to the national championships in back east, and we're today joined again by this time the girls Northridge ASA softball team 10 and under girls for the 2004. I'm here to recognize their academic athletic accomplishments. As we did last week, they won 3 tournaments, including second place in the district championships. They placed second in the state tournament and recently completed in St. Louis, Missouri, where they placed 7th in the national championship tournament. These girls we're very proud of them, as we've always been of the Northridge teams. We've had a long record of very strong teams in Northridge, winning teams, but this was the very first time we ever sent the 10 and under girls to the national championship. And their great success is worthy of our accolades today and recognition of their great accomplishments back at the national championships and bringing great pride to the Northridge community, and I know their parents in particular. And so I wanted to recognize the girls. They've all already gotten, first of all, they got the medals. Show us your medals. Hello, that's great. All right. And we've given each of the girls a certificate for their personal accomplishments, but we want to recognize always the people that make it all happen. They're not just the girls, but the team leaders, the people that give them the wisdom and the leadership. And so today, with us today, I want to recognize the coaches of the team and the manager of the team. First of all, Pat Fields, manager. Pat. I'll have you say it. George Kalan. Ernie Granillo, and Steve Whiteside. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the coach that really made this team come together, and we're looking for great things in the future, because if we're bringing the 10 and under to national championships, we know we're going to have some more great teams coming in Northridge. So, Coach, if you'd like to say a few words.
Sure. Thank you. Councilman Smith and members of the City Council, on behalf of the Northridge ASA Girls 10 and Under All-Star team, I want to thank you guys for recognizing this team. Other than the record and the accolades that go with this, I think that the girls should also be recognized for the many hours and days of hard work and practice that they put in. We've been at it for 3 months now, and it's been 5-6 days a week, and these girls have come every day with great attitudes, and all the accolades and awards they've got are well deserved. And I think that Northridge and the City of Los Angeles will have some team to be proud of for a long time. Thanks, everyone.
What was the record?
They were 39, 10, and 2 this year.
All right. Mr. Dudlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Where's Ms. Hahn this morning? We need her famous there. Girls rule. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I just wanted to say, Councilman Smith, thank you again. For everybody here in the audience, you should know Councilman Smith is constantly bringing young people from his district out here to recognize for their achievements, and it just really is something that I think we should do more of, and I congratulate you on that. And secondly, to the parents who are coaches and volunteers, you're just making these dreams happen. We're all so proud of your work and your willingness to give back to the community. And to the girls, congratulations. Not only did you make Northridge proud, but you made the entire city of Los Angeles proud. Congratulations, and we're honored to have you here today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Now wave to the camera. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
This way, guys. This way.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Labange is now ready for his presentation. Let's go to him next.
Mr. President, it's a good day today, but a sad day. We salute good people who've done great things, and this young man who went to Los Angeles High School, graduate class of '62, couple Romans over there, then went out there to Westwood to major in engineering, graduated from UCLA, Frank Bonhoff, a great deputy city engineer, as I like to call him. He likes to laugh about it. And Frank is one of the ones.
money for it.
Now, Frank, you don't want to say that. Everybody out in Los Angeles wants to know how hard you worked for the people. Not that you wanted any kind of special compensation. Frank loved his job, and he loved helping people. As a deputy city engineer, principal civil engineer is the correct title. I like to give you that promotion.
I know. That's
But
what
you
I
got to
did.
remember. His grandparents settled in Los Angeles in 1898, and he's a native Angelino, as I said, at Los Angeles High and UCLA. But he started in 1965 as a student worker out at the Hyperion plant in the Playa del Rey area. And for all those years, he climbed the ladder, working on various systems that we don't really see, but we take for granted, our sewer systems in this great city, and help work to improve our sewer systems, our storm drain systems, the construction, additionally at Hyperion, also worked to streamline the permit processing plant, processing of permits, and also our assessments division in combining the assessment and permit division to be more efficient. He was promoted in 1993 to principal civil engineer and transferred to the Valley office, serving at the Van Nuys City Hall, now the Marvin Browdy Center in the heart of the San Fernando Valley. He was driving west on the Ventura Freeway one day in traffic, and I turned and waved to him. So it was nice to run into somebody I knew on the freeway. It was non-peak hours, so we were moving safely across the valley. He's been married for 34 years. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, Susan's been working.
Susan's been working for 34 years and working for 134 for you, Frank. But no, Susan, his lovely wife, Susan Bonhoff, has worked for the Los Angeles Unified School District for 34 years. They have two daughters, Stephanie and Stanford. One is attending, Nicole is attending Stanford, and Stephanie is attending UCLA. I'm moving faster than I should have right there, Frank. I'm sorry. But anyway, Frank, I wanted to salute you because you had quick wit. You always brought a laugh and a cheer to those people who worked around you, but involved in supporting the city family, and you had dedicated service for all these years. And if you look behind me right now, Frank, these are the people that you work with who really cared about you and came all the way downtown to salute you on this day of retirement. So, upon adoption of this resolution, blessed by the great seal of the City of Los Angeles, I hereby honor Frank Bonhoff with the signature of the mayor and all the members of the City Council, including our City Controller and City Attorney, as well as our city clerk. For these 37 years, Frank Bonhoff, congratulations to all of you. Before the picture's taken, let me finish the words. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Here,
thank
Butch.
you.
There we go.
Let me
Ms.
just say-
Mizikowski.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Tom has said it well about Frank Bonhoff and what he has done there. I was particularly taking note, Tom, when you said about he worked on systems we really didn't see. As we all know, as council members, sometimes we have to be taken to places that we wouldn't otherwise see other than our city employees bringing it to our attention. And Frank knows what's coming. Frank, I was elected city council member representing the Van Nuys area, and Frank Bonhoff got transferred to the Van Nuys division of the Bureau of Engineering, called me up one day and says, "You've got to see something." Went out to his office, and he wanted to take me to the men's restroom in the Van Nuys City Hall to show me the bad condition it was, no air conditioning, that along with the rest of the building, but he knew I wouldn't see that unless he took me in there. And so that helped spur getting the funds to improve old Van Nuys City Hall, getting the funds to really build a brand-new City Hall. And about a couple years ago, I think, Frank was looking at possibly retiring then. And we were able to say, no, he couldn't retire until he got his new office in the Marvin Browdy San Fernando Valley Constituent Service Center, and he stayed there and was just as proud to show that new building and that new office and what can be done by city engineers, city know-how, city involvement as the stuff that needed it done. So Frank, congratulations, and that's just a light story, but in fact you are well respected by your colleagues. They enjoy your wit as well, but you were really dedicated, got things done. You were known for that, doing what it took to make sure that it came to our attention to get it done along with you. So congratulations for a great retirement.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I too wanted to stand up and say congratulations to Frank and that you will be missed, and tell a funny story. We've been recently dealing with Sister Elsie Street in my district, which is a street that has homes built on it. It's a street that also goes into private property. We're not quite sure how it was ever designed and how we still have it in that way, but when we tried to repair it, we were told we couldn't do it because we couldn't repair a street on private property, even though it was the street that we had been using for decades. But Frank is someone, he sent me an email. I don't know if you remember this, Frank, but to Dale and myself recently, which just says, you know, I've been here a long time, and I'm going to speak out. I won't say exactly what you were going to speak out on, but to speak out and tell it like it is. And I want you to know, Frank, I think you've always told it like it is in any of the meetings I've had with you. And I appreciate that honesty, that commitment. And again, sometimes you tell us things we don't want to hear, or you tell constituents things they don't want to hear. But it's usually truthful. It's usually trying to find the right way to solve the problem, and you really are a true public servant in this city and someone that we can be proud to say you were part of the City of Los Angeles family. So thank you for your decades of service, and particularly your help in my last 2 years as being a council member here. Thank you very much.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. It's interesting, the folks you're hearing from are the folks that have been here for many years, either as staff or experience in different areas of the city. I want to thank you, Frank, because back in the early 90s, you were the only one, when it came to issues of the inner city, where you were just very blunt. You say, well, of course, Ed, at that time I was a planning deputy working development projects, housing, commercial, and we kept getting these requests from the department saying, you need to widen that street X amount of feet, knowing that at one of the property was their freeway entrance, and the other side there was another permanent site that would never open up. And you would say, well, you know, Ed, this is one of those ordinances, those rules that just doesn't make sense. We'll waive it. But you were very specific as to what these rules are doing to these communities. And you were very blunt about just how old our infrastructure was. And you made a difference. You helped us, and you made the projects move. And that was a very rare insight that I got. And I want to thank you for that, because it was honest, it was clear, and it was about what made sense as opposed to this is what the bureaucracy dictates. And that is something that I'll always treasure. We're going to miss that. And I would hope that your influence in the department, quite frankly in all the departments, is one in which we look at what makes sense, what's practical for that area, versus what the rules are dictating. Because there's a difference sometimes, especially in the older communities. For that, I thank you, Frank, and I'm going to miss you. And I still talk about you when I hear this stuff coming from people and say, wait a minute, and I respond to that issue, say, why don't we use some common sense? You know, there's a guy named Frank Bonnoff that used to do that. I wish he was over here, but he sent him out into the valley, and we're going to miss you. You have a great golden years. I want to thank Susan, your lovely wife, for your support, because I know next to every great man is a great woman, and I just want to thank you for that. Have a great retirement.
Mr. Smith.
Well, I just want to add to the long list of people that are standing up and giving acclaims to Frank. You know, first as a staff member, I had the opportunity to work with Frank on numerous projects, and then as a council member. But I think the important fact is that over all those years, I can't tell you how many times somebody came up and was doing a project in the city of LA and said, would you assign Frank Bonoff to the project, because we know it'll get done in a timely way, it'll get done right. I can't think of anything greater to say about a public servant than when the public asks that you be the person assigned to work on a project, because that says you have a great deal of integrity and that you're respected by the people of this city as well as the bureaucrats of this city and the people in this council. And I know I was one of those people that many times requested that Frank Bonoff be the guy that get those projects, because we want to see them get done in a timely way, but we knew they were always done right. And as you end your career, I want you to know that I, as well as obviously all these people here, truly respect what you did because of your integrity and your diligence to detail, and we knew it was going to be done right, and I think that's all we can ever ask of a public employee. So, Frank, the best of everything to you. You deserve every bit of whatever comes your way, and I hope it's all positive and good. And I hope you come back and see us once in a while, but God bless you for really caring about this city and also the people that you serve, and that's the 3.8 million people of the city of Los Angeles. Frank, you're a real gem.
Awfully nice words by our council members. I'd like to call on Gary Lee Moore, our city engineer, for a few remarks.
One thing I keep hearing about is Frank's integrity, and we all know that in the Bureau of Engineering. But I think that one thing we'd like to share with you is Frank's willingness to always help everybody he comes in contact with in the Bureau of Engineering. Frank has always been willing to share all the knowledge he has, and that's something that we're lucky we're going to get to have as Frank leaves. And so, Frank, from all of us, all your friends in the Bureau of Engineering, happy retirement to you and Susan.
Thank you. All right, now here, ladies and gentlemen, the great Frank Bonoff.
Thank you, Councilmember Labange. Thank you thank you all the other council members. It's really amazing being up here, but I just saw Captain Jones, and I only have 38 and a half years. I feel like I'm taking early retirement. This is unbelievable after seeing him. I want to thank my wife, Susan. I got to make certain I thank her. I mean, in the time we have been married, from the time we got married, she encouraged me on the promotions, everything else. I moved from associate, when you weren't hired in as associate, you actually had to work to get there, all the way up to principal civil engineer. And she's the one who encouraged me to retire. She's the one who pointed out I was the Joe Paterno of the Bureau of Engineering. Said, you've basically done everything, you're too old, and they really want you to leave. So I said, okay, I'll leave, And, but anyway, I want to thank everybody I have worked with. I said this at the board, it's the people. The people I've worked with have made it fun. I mean, there have been some people that weren't fun, but for the most part, you can make fun of them and have fun. And I mean, that's important too. And really, they were just great people. I just thought of the city and the Bureau of Engineering as a big family that we lived together for years and years with births, deaths, marriages, divorces, kids growing up, stories about medical, everybody playing amateur doctor every time somebody had a pain. I mean, really just a wonderful group of people that, that I've been around. Again, I want to state one of the other stories. I was hired in at UCLA. Bob Horry interviewed me, and he asked a standard question off of the chart of questions that you do when you are interviewing people. What are your long-term and short-term goals? And I thought a couple of seconds, and I said, well, long-term, I either want to be city engineer or replace Johnny Carson. And short-term, I really need a date for a Mardi Gras this weekend. And unfortunately, I didn't meet any of those goals. But making it, principal civil engineer was, outstanding as a career, and I really enjoyed it, and I really want to thank everybody, and it's been fun, and like the Terminator says, I'll be back.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Colleagues, before proceeding to the next presentation, I'm going to ask for your help here in keeping the noise level down in chambers and specifically behind the horseshoe. A lot of us have staff having sidebar conversations. Those staff members in conversations that don't need to be here, will they please move to the back of chambers and allow those being recognized today their proper attention. For our next presentation, let me recognize Councilmember Hahn once again. And please welcome Chief of Police William Bratton.
Chief, front and center. And you too. Yeah, do we want all the officers up? Officially stand. Yeah. I need the officers to stand or bring up or come stand behind me or whatever you want to do. Yeah, I know, really. Oh, yeah, it's great. You can come close. Looks better on the camera.
Ones to the right.
Yeah, right.
To the left.
Spread my way.
Mr. President, colleagues, it gives me great honor to make this presentation this morning. I know sometimes we wonder why we honor those who are just doing their jobs, but that actually is sometimes the bulk of our presentation sometimes is having an opportunity to honor those who are just doing their jobs. But I'm particularly pleased to honor these officers who are here today because we have seen an incredible decrease in crime in the harbor area, particularly in my community of Wilmington. And even before I was elected to city councilwoman in 2001, during my years of campaigning to get to that job, the community of Wilmington complained about being held hostage. Being held hostage to gang members which were severely limiting their quality of life, which were severely limiting their opportunity to live joyfully every day, severely limiting the opportunity for young people who felt like they deserved to walk to and from school, to be involved in after-school programs without being threatened or recruited by gang members. The West Side Wilmas and the East Side Wilmas were the gang members that had plagued Wilmington for as long as most people could remember. And it was in March, actually it was in 2000, we had 17 homicides just in Wilmington. 15 of those were gang related. But all that has changed because of a gang injunction that was put into place in the community of Wilmington. And hopefully we'll hear a little bit about how difficult it is to get a gang injunction in place. It takes hours of work from the police department. It takes hours of work from the city attorney's office. Many people wonder not whether they do work, but in this situation it has worked. And it's because of the 70 officers, many of them who are here today, of the LAPD Harbor Division who have been enforcing this gang injunction in Wilmington. Over 200 gang members have been served. There have been 75 injunction arrests and 42 convictions. Since the injunction was put into place 5 months ago, these are great statistics. This is great for me, it gives me great bragging rights for my Harbor Division. Homicides are down 67% from this time last year. Gang-related assault is down 32%. Gang-related robbery is down 30%. Shots fired calls have dropped 18%. And overall, crime is down. And I believe that that crime reduction is due to the dedicated work of the LAPD Harbor Division officers, sergeants, lieutenants, many again who are here this morning. These men and women are doing their job, but these men and women, in my opinion, have really resolved and have made their commitment to the community of Wilmington evident in their day-to-day jobs. And for that, I personally wanted to thank them. But more importantly, the residents of Wilmington owe you officers a huge debt of gratitude. You have given them their life back in many respects. You have given young people a reason to feel hopeful again. And you have given kids a reason to do something else besides be involved in a gang and be involved in productive activities after school. I really want to say thank you to that. You've made a huge difference. You've done more to improve the quality of life for the residents of Wilmington than I think anything we've done. And you know, I always say, as council members, we work hard to pave the streets, fix the sidewalks, trim the trees, provide basic services. We work hard to try to build new libraries, open new parks, but none of that really matters unless our residents feel safe. Brand new libraries don't matter if the kids aren't using them because they don't feel safe. Well-manicured parks don't matter if people are afraid to go and enjoy what we have to offer. So together, we've made Wilmington a much better place than the way I found it in 2001, and I'm grateful. I have certificates for each of you. But I really, before I want to let our chief speak, Chief Bratton's here, I want to let Captain Gannon speak, and I want Liz Greenwood, who is the city attorney, who has really made this her life's work to rid our community of gangs, and we're here to honor her as well, and I would like for her to say a few words. So, Chief Bratton.
Thank you. Council members. Well, on behalf of the department and the men and women who are behind me, a sincere thank you to Councilmember Hahn for bringing attention to this issue and the accolades of the council for the work of the men and women of the Harbor Division. Thousands of hours over a several-year period actually went into the preparation with the city attorney's office of the injunction which was granted on March 9th. The statistics that she's relating to you, combination of the work enforcing that provided the information to get the injunction, but the work since then using the injunction. Injunctions work. We are very supportive of them. There has been some discussion, do they work or do they not work? I'm telling you as Chief of the Los Angeles Police Department, these things work, and we in fact can expand their usefulness in the months ahead. This one clearly works. 2 months ago with Councilman Garcetti and Tom LaBonge up at Hollywood and Vine, we announced a 50% reduction in gang violence in that area of the city with the injunction they have there. A number of the other council members have participated with me during my 2 years as Chief of Police in similar efforts. They work, they make neighborhoods safer, and working together we can really make this safe city a much safer place. It's something that the mayor certainly supports, and I know that all of you in the council do. So thank you for this acknowledgement of the hard work of these men and women. They do work hard, and they are getting results. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Reyes.
And then you'll speak.
For me, it's important to acknowledge the fact that for all the men and women in blue, those of you who are always under pressure about hearing the negative things, I'm just glad we had the opportunity to share some of the positive things that are happening. And I can tell you in my district, with the leadership of Chief Bratton, the mayor, Rocky Delgadillo, the city attorney, our crime has gone down tremendously. There are many pockets that have turned around. Families are now walking the street. They're going to the parks. And all the issues that you addressed, Janice, are very clear in my district. And I just want to really thank you for that hard work. You know, the press talks about issues when the plane crashes. It's a story. They don't talk about all the sacrifices and all the good things you do day to day. And again, I think it's important that we celebrate it. And yes, you are doing your job, but I don't think anyone really understands what you go through when you're there night and day, 24 hours, and looking out for our constituencies. So I want to again thank you for all your hard work. And I continue to say to everyone, we need to help out our men and women in blue. For every 12 gang members, there's 1 officer. So we need to increase our eyes and ears so we can become a safe city that we can be. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. LaBonge.
follow that, Ed, just to say that too. And I like to see that city attorneys who are there standing side by side with the police officers, because it's a joint effort, and it's a tremendous effort that you make it impact that much. And I remember long ago when I first started working here, how if you solve a problem for one person, you change their whole life. You change their whole life. So that 50% reduction solved the problem for a whole lot of people and changed their life. I want to compliment Chief Bratton for your work and turning it around. But Captain Gannon, good to see you leading the way, and all of you at Harbor Division, our city attorneys, but especially Janice, I want to thank you for pushing, because I think it helps when you have that whole form as a whole leadership pushing to make a difference in the lives of people, and certainly in Wilmington Harbor area. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you.
And also, Janice, I think it's great to see traffic officers shoulder to shoulder with patrol officers and other officers, because traffic is underrated, and a lot of times people speed through neighborhoods that cause a big problem that leads to other problems. And I see the chief smiling. Thank you.
Well, one of my biggest campaigns has been Slow Down San Pedro, and I wouldn't be able to have accomplished what we've accomplished there without the traffic officers helping to enforce speed rules. I'd like now to introduce, I know you guys all think you have good commanding officers in your divisions, but with all respect to my Southeast Division, which is also in my district, this is the best commanding officer in the city of Los Angeles. And Chief Bratton, we love Pat Gannon. He's a Pedro boy, so he knows our issues. We don't want him to go anywhere, by the way. Pat Gannon, why don't you say a few words?
Thank you, Councilwoman Hahn. One thing we can always count on in Harbor Division is the support of the council office, and she keeps us on our toes when we're not doing our job properly, but when we get out into community events, she's our biggest supporter, and we appreciate all of your support, and especially today. These officers that have worked very hard on this gang injunction, but it wouldn't be possible without the support of the city attorney's office and the aggressive prosecution that goes along with it, as Councilman LaBonge was saying. So that is the key portion here. We have a great city attorney in Liz Greenwood, and she does an outstanding job to support these officers. I'd also like to say what Councilman Reyes, comment on what Councilman Reyes had to say, is that we can throw numbers out all we want. We can talk about the decreases in percentages, which are absolutely important because that's real. But the real proof of the pudding is when we go to community meetings, and community people will tell us, thank you very much, and shake your hand and say there is a reduction in gang members hanging out on the street. There is a reduction in gang violence. They don't know about the statistics, and they don't want to hear about statistics. They want to see real things. And as that graffiti declines and as those shootings decline, they really notice. So that is the real advantage to having these injunctions. And I thank you for your support, and the officers at Harbor Division, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce, again, we know that all of our city attorneys are out there working hard, but I want to introduce someone who I think is one of the hardest working city attorneys that I've ever known, and who really literally makes this her life's goal to empower our neighborhoods and give them their lives back. City Attorney Liz Greenwood.
Thank you, Janice. When I found out this was happening today, I was trying to think of something to say. And I remembered the very first legal job interview that I went on. It was with Judge Alarcon in the Ninth Circuit. And he, in the middle of the interview, asked me who my heroes were. And I had done some research on the judge and was able to come up with 3 people. He wanted 3 heroes. They had to be alive, and I had to be able to justify why. And I was able to come up with 3 reasonably quickly, and they were very appropriate and very topical. But the truth is that the people who are heroes to me are people that are ordinary people. People that when they're faced with extraordinary circumstances respond and rise to the occasion. And the people that are my heroes are standing up here with me right now. And I just want to thank you and thank Janice for honoring them for the work that they do. Because without the work that they do, I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do. 2 people I want to mention specifically. One is my partner, Jewel Bishop, who is standing here to my left. This is the great legal mind behind this. I work with the officers, I help collect the evidence, I prosecute them. Jewel is the one that puts it all together and is able to present it to civil court and really make this work. I could tell you stories about every single officer up here. I want to single out one and actually ask him to come up if I could.
Sure.
Mark Maldonado. Officer Maldonado, when we started this project 4 years ago, Officer Maldonado was working patrol. And he had worked the crash unit, he was familiar and an expert in the gangs in the Strip, and we had really a vacuum in the Wilmington, a vacuum got created in the Wilmington expertise. And while working patrol, seeing the need there, Mark developed his expertise in Wilmington and became an expert so that when he got back to working the gang unit again, he was the expert ready to go and the East Side Wilmington expert on our injunction. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about how officers do things that are above and beyond what they normally do. They see a need in this community and they try and meet that need in order to try and solve crime down there. And they have successfully solved crime down there. Again, I could tell you stories like that about every single person standing up here. I'm very blessed. I am blessed that the city attorney, that Rocky Delgadillo lets me work down there. I am blessed that the chief lets me work in the division, and I am blessed with working with an incredible group of police officers. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay. Again, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to honor all of you. Thank you, Chief Bratton, particularly for empowering your officers to get things done and empowering your officers to return neighborhoods back to the people who live there. Thank you. Let's go that way. Steps.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. And for, I believe, our final presentation, let me recognize Councilmember Villaraigosa.
Yeah, why don't you come on up? How are you? That's Larson. That's Captain. Assistant Chief, I'm sorry. Good to see you.
Yes, Mr. President, members, here today to announce the Traffic Safety Education and Awareness Campaign. The LADOT, with help from the California Office of Traffic Safety, the MTA, the CHP, and other dedicated partners, including our own LAPD, have launched the Watch the Road Traffic Safety Education and Awareness Campaign in May of 2004. These partner agencies have formed Operation Traffics. Operation Traffics, and that's TRAFFIX. Mission is to reduce the number of fatalities and injuries caused by accidents in Los Angeles County. Currently, there are 700 fatalities and 88,000 injuries on county roads annually. This Watch the Road campaign studied behaviors that contribute to crashes. The campaign has determined that 10 primary behaviors need to be targeted as follows: speeding, aggressive driving, inattentive driving, bicycling, and running through red traffic lights, driving under the influence, not yielding to pedestrians, walking without looking, walking outside of crosswalks, bicycling against traffic, and not buckling up. And this campaign is getting the message out by placing traffic safety messages on bus shelters. You may have seen them. I know Councilmember Garcetti had a press conference yesterday in his district regarding these messages. They're on bus benches, vehicle bumpers, and electronic billboards. They're on the radio and other media. This campaign is working with local law enforcement to coordinate these efforts, and most importantly, we're working in a coordinated way to reduce fatalities and make our roads safer. So I'd like to ask Wayne Tanda, the General Manager of LADOT, to say a few words about this very important campaign. Yes.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much. I apologize. I would defer to Councilmember Garcetti.
I was just going to say great things about Antonio Villaraigosa and about yourself and the entire department, so I'll insert them very quickly. Yesterday we had a great press conference, Hollywood and Highland. Want to thank the folks over at CIM Group that shows on the zipper sign there part of this great public relations campaign. I've seen it on the dash buses whenever I'm driving to work, and I really think it gets people focused on, you know, whatever the tagline is, saving 1 minute of your life, you can lose your life in 1 minute. It isn't worth it. And we really are getting people to realize, and it was very sobering yesterday to do that right after the 210 accident. I know we had the highway patrol here, but you see the horrific consequences of not keeping your eye on the road. And I want to thank DOT, and I want to thank our chair of the Transportation Committee, Antonio Villaraigosa, for doing something which is regional-wide, and his help for making that move forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Joining me today is Assistant Chief John Larson with the California Highway Patrol. John has, I know, spent his career as members of also members of Los Angeles Police Department, members of all law enforcement in Los Angeles County, trying to curb behavior that results in, and I'll be repetitive, approximately 700 deaths per year and 90,000 people who are injured each year. People in my profession in engineering also work very hard to put in improvements to make things safer. And John and I very well know that those TEs of enforcement and education needs to be combined with education. I'm sorry, enforcement and engineering need to be combined with education. The members in back of me are individuals on the LADOT staff who've been working very hard to get the message out, and it's our pleasure to be able to introduce to you today our first two messages that are graciously developed in partnership with Channel 35 and the IT department, and I'd like to acknowledge them and thank them very much, and members of the LADOT staff. The first message that you'll be seeing is a 30-second message, and it's in Spanish. Talks about inattentiveness. The second one in English talks about just slowing down. Those two behaviors, if they were to be just adjusted a bit, could save literally hundreds of lives in a year, and thousands, tens of thousands, prevent tens of thousand injuries. And so with that, I believe it's queued up, the first 30 seconds. Hit it.
Sí, yo sé que voy tarde. Llegaré pronto.
Es mejor perder un minuto de su vida que su vida en un minuto. Atención a la carretera.
I'll be home in a minute.
Well, the party's just getting started, so hurry home, honey.
Talk to you later.
Yes, good job.
Slow down. Your family is waiting for you. Watch the road.
Obviously, a very tough message, but a message, unfortunately, that gets played out too often here in the city of Los Angeles and in the county, and this is a very important message to get out. We know that we can do something affirmative to address the issue of safety on the road, and this campaign is a very successful, unique effort in the state and the country to try to do that. I'd like to have the Assistant Chief Larson say a few words as well.
Thank you. It's an honor for me to be here today representing the Highway Patrol. And one of the great parts of my job is working with a coalition as we are in the Traffic Committee. Their hard work and dedication and their commitment to our communities is fantastic. It's inspiring to me, and also your leadership and recognition of them. I thank you very much and appreciate the recognition of the Traffic Committee. Thank you.
So on behalf of the Los Angeles City Council and the Transportation Committee, my colleagues Tom Labange and Greg Smith, who have been very crucial to the development of this campaign. We want to acknowledge all of the partners here for their work in doing everything we can to save lives on the road, provide for better traffic safety, really educate the drivers, the riders, the walkers, the pedestrians, all of the people, the need to watch the road. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Villaraigosa. Colleagues, this concludes the presentation segment of our agenda. I want to next turn to the commission nominees who have been waiting so patiently for the last 2 hours for consideration. I think to expedite their hearing, what I'd like to do is first consider item number 16, which is the reappointment of Peter Weil to the Board of Airport Commissioners. And then after item 16, we will take items 2 through 6 together. I believe we have 5 commission nominees here with us. We can take them all together after we hear from Mr. Weil. So item 16, then items 2 through 6 together, and then we will proceed to the special meeting agenda, which has 1 item. Mr. Reyes?
Thank you, Council President. I wanted to reconsider item number 1, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to do that.
Okay, well, let's reconsider and then hold it on the desk for further action. Let's open the roll on reconsideration of item number 1. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that's reconsidered and back on the desk. Mr. Weil, thank you for being here. Let's hear from members of the council on item 16, beginning with Ms. Misikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand up to give the highest recommendation of support for asking the council to reconfirm Mr. Weil to the Airport Commission. He has gone, as we've seen on a lot of our commissions, gone above and beyond just going to a meeting weekly, reading the agendas and dealing with the items. He has helped elevate, I think, the commission to the kinds of things we would like to see our commissioners do, not only engaging and involving with the public, but engaging and involving the staff beyond just the items on the agenda. In particular, Mr. Weil stepped to the front very early on and talked about the issues of security. And I don't know if Mr. Weiss is still here, but I know that Mr. Weiss and I met on a number of occasions with sort of an informal subcommittee chaired by Mr. Weil of the Airport Commission with airport staff on the issue of security at LAX, and help to elevate and bring to the fore some of the concerns that I think we will all discuss as we deal with the master plan and some of the security aspects of it. But Mr. Weil is no stranger to us. He has been a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals when that entity existed, chairing that. He was on the City Planning Commission, I believe, chairing that as well. So his knowledge, background, experience in giving back to the city is unquestioned, and I just think he is an excellent, excellent member of the Airport Commission that I think is generally finding itself these days in doing an awful lot of good things, whether at LAX, the master plan, noise issues in the community, or the Van Nuys Airport. So I ask strongly for a recommendation of approval for his nomination.
Other members wishing to be heard on item 16? If not, let me just ask one quick question. Mr. Weil, is that everything you thought it was going to be?
Yes, yes, it has, but there's a lot more to do, and it's just the airport is in good shape and it's getting better, and it's a privilege to have an opportunity to work with staff and work with the council and the mayor's office in connection with it.
Good. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll on confirmation, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for serving the city.
Thank you, council members.
We now proceed to items 2 through 6. Group of commission nominees, if Ms. McGlory, Reverend Epps, Ms. Choi, Ms. Yee, and Mr. Silva will come forward. Colleagues, these are commission nominees to the Housing Authority Commission, Affordable Housing Commission, South Valley Area Planning Commission, Transportation Commission, and the Taxi Cab Commission. Consideration of these individuals has been held in committee. Let's hear first from Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First, let me convey to the council, Mr. Epps, Pastor Epps, was in our committee. He was unable to be here today, and we talked about that 2 days ago in committee, but he was unanimously recommended by the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee, so I hope folks will join me in that today. I want to congratulate all three of you, and thank you for your service. And Ms. Choi, you know, we've had the chance to work together, and appreciate the good things you've done, and know that you worked on some of the most difficult issues, Playa Vista, and now as a contractor. Just one question for you, kind of as you look, and it's not my area where you will be serving, but clearly it has citywide implications. How do we add densification to this city in a way that still respects communities and community character?
Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to be considered as a commissioner, and of course, thanks to Mayor Hahn as well as the council member Gruhl. It's an interesting question that you pose, Councilmember Garcetti. On my write-in today, I carefully thought out where I kind of came from and where I am today. I came to this city as an immigrant, and I came from a place where there really is no civic participation to the degree that we have it. I consider it an honor to watch the council deal with everyday issues, quality of life issues, and dealing with urban growth. And as a part of that process, having a civic body as an APC or a neighborhood council entity to work with, I think that's an incredible privilege as a city to be able to have those bodies and entities in place. The particular area that I live in, reside in, is going to be experiencing, continues to every day, witness incredible development, incredible growth. I think there's some amazing opportunities and some difficult challenges in balancing housing, development, looking at infrastructure and transportation. My commitment as a commissioner in this particular jurisdiction is to make sure we include input from all community groups, especially those in terms of legitimate community groups as neighborhood councils, homeowners associations, but also business associations and commerce associations. I think it's very important to safeguard quality of life issues from the residential point of view, but also I think we need to take a look at intelligent strategic planning for job growth and for smart development. So that is my pledge to you, the council, and to the mayor, that within the limits and the degrees of what I've learned through my 12 years in working at City Hall and outside of City Hall on development issues, I look forward to bringing that base of knowledge to try to bring strategic balance into this area.
Thank you very much, Ms. Choi. I know your family's here, and we thank them as well, and we look forward to great service. And Ms. Yee and Mr. Silva, congratulations as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to thank all of our appointees for their hard work, for the commitment to the city. I know I work with Tina Choi in different capacities from the mayor's office and working with over at the west part of our city, as well as Sherry Yee in her work in the development community. So I just want to thank you all for being here, and looking forward to working with you.
I just wanted to say, Councilmember Reyes, especially as the chair of Plum, and through the years that I've worked with you in City Hall, I look forward to your leadership, your vision in addressing that very challenge that I just talked about. So thank you for the opportunity to work with you.
Okay, other members wishing to be heard on items 2 through 6? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Okay, thank you very much. You're all confirmed. Thank you for serving the city. And Ms. McGlory, you're my constituent. You're making me proud. Forthwith on these items as well. All items approved are going forthwith today. Mr. Reyes?
Yes, Council President, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize a visitor. She's the Vice Chair of the French Conference of Mayors. They're here as part of a delegation. They're studying immigration issues. That's Mayor, and I apologize if I don't pronounce her name correctly, Mayor Francois Descamps-Cronier. She's the Mayor of Rony Suarez Sene. And I just want to welcome you to Los Angeles and all your guests. Let's give her a big round of applause. These are our international visitors. And again, welcome to the City of Angels. Have a great time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reyes. Colleagues, as I mentioned, unless there's an objection, what I'd like to do now is temporarily recess the regular meeting agenda. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll on the special meeting.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Han, Labange, Ledlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Whiteside, Padilla, 13 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. And again, sergeants and members of the council, your assistance, please, in keeping the noise level down in council chambers. We do have a one-item special meeting agenda that is now before us. Mr. Clerk, the item, please.
Item 1 is the item for which public hearing has been held.
Okay, public hearing has been held on this item. Motion from the floor to be required to reopen the public hearing. Seeing no such motion, Ms. Miskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to introduce this. I think perhaps we should have our staff come forward from City Engineer, General Services, perhaps the CLA and CAO. Members, what we have before us is an opportunity, and this opportunity is something that we either can take and execute quickly, or we lose the opportunity. It's not necessarily free from doubt as to the choices and the options here, and very often when we are asked to do something quickly, each of us thinks we need more time, we need to figure out whether or not this is a good thing or not. But what we have is the opportunity to buy Figueroa Plaza, 201 and 222 North Figueroa Street. For a number of years, these two buildings have been the buildings where the city has invested time and money and house a number of city employees at a good rental rate, but a rental rate. And in fact, if we look at the rest of the building, it's now renting at much, much, much higher rates. These buildings are well known in the city of LA because it's where our building and safety, our one-stop center is, our planning department is. It's a very important public face as part of the city, and it has been for a number of years. I pointed out when we were in committee the other day that we had the opportunity when we rebuilt City Hall and are rebuilding City Hall East and moving our employees back in. The entities of yore, our city planning, city building and safety, were always in City Hall. But when we moved out and we're redoing City Hall, we built and rented the space at Fig Plaza that works exceptionally well. You've heard here people come and testify the change and the convenience of Building and Safety One-Stop Center. You've heard the planning department being side by side with Building and Safety. It works well, and we decided not to bring them back to this building, even though this is the public City Hall. I think the opportunity to buy this building today makes sense. Our city financial advisors have advised so, our outside consultants have advised so, and we've had two committees who held a joint hearing, and both committees recommended, yes, let's do it. I know that I'm sure Councilmember Parks, as Chair of Budget and Finance, will suggest that the reasons why he supported it. The problem is, members, we had an option. That option expires. We have to exercise that option or not. We did not have the ability to exercise that option a few years ago. I think 3 to 5 years ago we had the option to buy this building for $90 million, but we had 30 days to exercise the option. We as a city couldn't act fast enough. We as a city didn't have the ability to turn it around, get our committee reports out, etc., and we missed that opportunity to buy it at $90 million when we had this same option. It's up again. We have the opportunity to execute it at a higher cost now because real estate values are such that it is increasing. We've now had 60 days to turn this around. Our staff, again, and particularly our financial advisors in the outside private community, those who advise other entities in the private world market, have said, this is a good deal. We should have taken it 3 or 4 years ago. We weren't able to because we didn't have the ability to turn it around. We now have the ability to do it at this value. We are going to stay there. We are going to be in Fig Plaza. It's going to be our public face for building and safety and the rest. We will also additionally continue to rent out the other space, which will help us augment our bond payment and the interest rates, et cetera. But we have to act quick. It's a judgment call. It's a judgment call. We have asked and gotten the reps and warranties that we had asked for earlier in committee to make sure the building is, there's nothing that the current owner knows that is something that they should be making us aware of in this building. Again, if we don't buy it, we're going to stay there. If we don't buy it, we're going to stay there and pay annual rent. And in a few years, when that term of rent is due, it'll be renegotiated at a much, much higher cost to us. It makes sense for us to buy it, and we should own that we have invested so much in and want to continue to keep those employees here at this space for a long time to come. So I do recommend, consistent with both committee reports, that we exercise this option and purchase the building. Let me ask our folks arrayed at the front table to fill this in terms of some of the details and what you've looked at. Mr. Fujioka?
You want to start? Well, there's 4 of us here at the table, from representatives from General Services, of course myself, the CEO. We have your Chief Legislative Analyst, and then the Bureau of Engineering, your city engineer. As we've gone and we've talked to several officers regarding this particular purchase, I know that concern has been expressed regarding what happened several years back when we had the opportunity to buy this building. And then also, is it a good decision today? I want to first speak to what we're dealing with today and remind you that we occupy close to half of the 2 buildings. We have staff over at Fig Plaza from our Department of Building and Safety. We have DOT, some of DOT there now. Some will be moving to the new Caltrans building. We have a lot of our planning staff over there. We have a one-stop center that's used extensively by the public or our constituents throughout the city of Los Angeles. We've made a huge investment into this facility now, and it's something we shouldn't walk away from. I've told a number of council members that for myself, I'm basically the kid of a farmer, and I believe you buy land. You do not lease land, you own land. And over a period of time, it's this asset that we can own now will be much, much more cost effective for the city to own this asset than to continue to be just merely a tenant. And we know the real estate market has changed, but yet over a given period of time, whether or not the rents stay at the current level now, and we actually have a below market rate lease payment structure, it still will be cheaper if we own this asset. Now, several years ago, we did not have in place what we have today. Most important, we brought to you, being our office with the CLA, a commercial paper program that gives us significant flexibility in consummating a transaction of this type. We also, several years ago, when another group came forward and said, we'll give you a deal, we will buy it, and then we'll lease it back to you for a prescribed period of time, 30 years. At the end of that period, we'll give it to you for $1. Back then and now, because we looked at that option for the current situation, cannot beat our MICLA program. Our MICLA program, and we bring it to you all the time for different projects, is no one in the private sector can beat that. And in fact, if we would have gone with this prior company several years ago, it would have cost the city at minimum $50 million more when the day was over. Today, we asked, as part of this transaction, we sent a notice out to the world and said, if anyone's interested in structuring a private-public kind of deal with us, give us your options. Only one viable company came forward, and again, it could not beat the MICLA program. Now, I do want, while I'm on the mic, clarify one thing, that during Budget and Finance, our office made the representation that a Route 23 was actually filed, and that was incorrect. At that point in time, it was prepared, this is several years ago, to look at this transaction. It's not particularly material to what I'm saying right now, but the fact that a representation was made, it's important to Ellen that we correct that representation.
Just give the background in terms of what we were asking at committee and what you did find out, because that, I don't think I knew that. At committee, we were told that there had been a Rule 23 effort to buy the property for $90 million, but we just didn't get in time, and you're saying that didn't happen? Could you just tell us the whole story? Maybe Ellen.
At one point, we said it was actually filed, my office, when in fact it was not filed. It was prepared, we were ready to do it, but there are a number of issues, and we'll speak to that during the course of this presentation, why that motion was not in fact filed. And understand too, several years ago, we did not have this commercial paper program. If you give us the go-ahead now, we can consummate this deal very quickly because of the flexibility our commercial paper program brings to a transaction of this type. Several years ago, we'd have to go out and again sell the bonds. And at that point in time, we had a very, very short period. I think we're down to 45 days if in fact we were going to move forward on the purchase several years ago. So, do you want to add something, Ron?
Well, just recently, there was a proposal to buy the Broadway building, and in order to contrast, to me, obviously, I wasn't shared by everybody, but to me, it was a clear-cut case of that was the appropriate thing to do. There was no downside whatsoever because we are going to occupy the entire building. We will immediately make cost savings as a result of that. We have tenants to move, and I believed at the time that there was going to be increased efficiency of employees, et cetera. And I think Councilwoman Miskowski made the appropriate comment. This is a judgment call. There are pros and there are cons to this purchase. The pros are clearly that the purchase of the building will stabilize our cost of occupancy over the next 25 years. At the end of that term, we will in fact own this asset that is worth at least $125 million today and will be worth substantially more than that. It is a Class A facility, Bureau of Engineering.
Mr. Carnes had a point
I'd
of...
like to clarify something. Mr. Deaton, how can you say it's worth $125 million today when the appraised value is $120 million? Is that rhetorical or is it factual?
All right, that's your point. Mr.
Thank you. Two things in response to that is, one is we have an appraisal for $120 million, and I guess there are four of us up here saying buy it at $125. If we didn't think it was worth $125 million, we shouldn't be sitting here saying that. So, I mean, that's our call is that if we're recommending to you that you purchase for $125 million, I sincerely hope that all four of us believe that it's worth $125 million as a result of that. So,
Continue, Mr. Deaton.
Okay. Given the projections on leasing cost, we believe that we would save money on purchasing over leasing because we believe that the leasing cost will go up after 2010. That's based on our estimates and our experts' estimates on what will happen to those leasing costs. Obviously, if they don't go up, then our analysis will be incorrect. If we did have to move in 2010, we will have a major relocation cost. The most significant of that will be to replace the one-stop building and safety facility because of its parking and because of its access, it has become extremely popular and a satisfactory situation to a lot of citizens of Los Angeles. To build a comparable building of 320,000 square feet, which is roughly the amount of space that we actually lease there, is 317,000, would cost at least a couple $100 million, give or take 10%. The cons are fairly significant too, though. As I said, we occupy 317,000 square feet. There are 615,000 square feet, so 300,000 square feet are either leased or vacant. There's about 6% of the building that is vacant. The rest of it is leases primarily with a law firm and with the County of Los Angeles. We will become landlords. To say that I have not been overwhelmed by our ability to be a landlord is probably an understatement, but it is a problem. We'll probably contract with somebody to do that. However, we will be in a different situation. If our estimates on the leases are incorrect, or for a prolonged period of time in the future, there are not those leases in place, we will have a cash flow problem, and our estimates will not be correct. We did one final thing is that as I said with the Broadway building, in the short term and in the long term, we made money. In the short term, we will be out someplace between $2 and $3 or $4 million a year, depending on the situation, during a very difficult time for us financially. On the whole, I still think we should proceed, but it is a judgment call in a lot different situation, a lot closer call than the Broadway building. One final thing, I think Jerry Miller and my staff indicated that we had some concerns about the guarantees. We'll address that. The guarantees are not the same as they are for the Broadway building. The Broadway building has that any problem we find for the first year, we have unlimited amount of money that we can make a claim against or go to court over. The city attorney indicates that it's a difference in terminology, but not much difference in substance. In this particular instance, we're capped at $750,000, and we have 9 months. Discussions yesterday I had with the Bureau of Engineering, and Mr. Moore can confirm those, is that they have absolutely no problems because of the amount of time that we have spent in the building with the electrical and the mechanical. The only potential difficulty would be the structural for seismic issues. Two things. One is that they believe, and they've discussed with people, engineers in the area who actually had something to do with the construction, that there is no reason to believe there is any problem, and that if there was a problem, short of a 7.0 earthquake in the downtown area, we would unlikely have any problems, and then if there were problems, they would be repairable and would not be catastrophic unless it was almost on top of the building. And for us to exercise that part of the guarantee, that earthquake would have to happen in the next 9 months. All in all, I think that given the analysis of the Bureau of Engineering, I think the reps and guarantees are adequate to the situation, and given the judgment of city workers on it.
All right, is there anyone else?
That's my report.
Anyone else, General Services or City Engineer, needs to add anything at this point, other than questions? All right. Then let me recognize Councilmember Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try to be concise, but first, Mr. Deaton, so what is your recommendation on this?
To proceed.
Is that a strong recommendation?
It is a judgment call. It is.
Thank you for that clarification.
Wait a second. No, let me. As I said in my.
Let me go through, colleagues, for a couple of reasons why I am a no vote today. Number one, as far as I know, we don't have a CLA report on this, and if we do, then it's only been released in the last 24 hours. Number two, this deadline as an issue with me carries no credibility because we heard the same argument in the conversations about whether or not to buy the Broadway building as part of the Transamerica complex. Colleagues, remember when we were considering that multiple times and referring it to numerous committees and coming back here, we were told by the previous owner that if the city doesn't buy it by next Wednesday, we're putting it up for sale. That didn't happen. Number three, I don't believe we've done our proper due diligence on this. This issue has only come up in the last couple of weeks. It got one hearing in committee, and now it's here at the full council. When we bought the Broadway building from the Transamerica complex, we had multiple, both full council considerations as well as various committees looking at this. We haven't gone through that due diligence process in this particular case. Number four, I recognize the discussion that's taken place as to why we're in a different place today than 2 years ago. And to me, that still poses significant questions. If this was a bad idea 2 years ago, or if it wasn't possible 2 years ago, why is it a good idea now when the price of the building has gone up more than $25, $30 million? And if this is a good deal, and I don't think we've seen the final product of what this deal is or not, then there's at minimum some staff accountability and performance questions that need to be answered and rectified. Not only is there a question between what was the case 2 years ago and what's the case today, I think there's something to be said about why buy this building today or not versus waiting another 2 years, because everybody knows what the real estate market is like right now. And even our real estate consultant told me in my office a couple of days ago, this is a seller's market, which would be great if we were selling a building. But we're trying to buy a building in a seller's market. So I don't think buying some time would necessarily hurt us. Number six, I'm standing here in front of Jan Perry's terminal. Ms. Perry has shared with me, and she's trying to make it back from another meeting, that she has serious reservations about the purchase of this building and its ripple effects, possible adverse effects on the convention center hotel effort that we're collectively trying to undertake, its potential adverse effects onto the Grand Avenue project that is also gaining momentum. Number seven, Ms. Perry has also asked me, where is the Transamerica stacking plan? We're wanting to buy the Figueroa Plaza to house city employees. We just purchased the Broadway building, and we don't know exactly who's going there and how many employees are going to fit there. And so we're considering buying another building to house additional employees. We've got to really think this through. Number eight, and this is maybe the biggest reason of all. Colleagues, this is not necessarily a small expenditure. $125 million is what we're being asked to spend today, with a very, very short time frame for consideration, with very minimal documentation, in my opinion, for us to review. Number nine, the issue of the guarantees. Our insurance policy, if you will, in this building being significantly less than the Broadway building that we recently have agreed to purchase. And as far as I can tell, even the guarantees haven't been put to us in writing. Again, if that's changed, it's only changed in the last 12 to 24 hours. And finally, something that Ms. Gruhl pointed out to me earlier, that if we're going to get into this business of buying real estate and being landlords, then where is our real estate plan? It was something that was discussed just a couple of months ago in the acquisition of the Broadway building. It was a commitment that we made as we made the commitment to buy that building, that the city was going to put together our strategic plan or a master plan for buying buildings and being a landlord. And as far as we can tell, that hasn't taken place in the last several weeks or the last couple of months, yet here we are. You're asking us in a very, very short time frame for consideration and review to buy $125 million. Colleagues, I can't in good faith be a yes on this today. I'm a no vote.
Mr. Cardenas.
I'm very bothered at the idea that we have such a concerted effort today to buy this same building that we've been occupying about 50% just 2 years ago, when we had at minimum 2 opportunities to improve our status in that facility and also improve our financial position in that building as well. So my questions are going to be along those lines, but first, on your time, Mr. Bull Fujioka, I'd like you to follow through with something you said a few minutes ago, that you were going to explain why the last time we were approached to have an opportunity to purchase this building at about $30 million less than we're talking about today, what happened, why that Rule 23 didn't follow through.
Several things happened prior to that Route 23 that is very, very significant. The option and the timeline we have now to deal with this option, the time we have now is actually longer than what occurred several years ago. We were approached, being we as a city, it was actually GSD was approached by a private entity with a proposal to create an option to buy, basically. That that basically triggered this option we had in the existing lease at the time.
It's called the first right of refusal.
Which it was. But when that information was presented through MFC, time had already passed, time had already elapsed, which created an even shorter period of time for us to deal with that particular option. I candidly have told other members of your council that, in my opinion, well, one, that deal with that private entity was not a good deal for the city. No one can beat our MICLA financing because of our tax status, because how we structured our MICLA program. No, there's not one private deal that can beat our MICLA financing structure.
What do you mean, what private deal? What private deal are you talking about?
Well, there's a private entity, without naming that entity, who came forward through our GSD and said, basically, we will buy this piece of property, we will lease it back to the city for a set period of time, 30 years, and at the end of that time period, we will basically give it to the city for $1.
But wait,
the interest rates for...
Excuse me, Mr. Fujioka. In the strictest sense, the way you just described it, it's my understanding, because I have some information on that deal, the city could have purchased that deal at a cap rate of $90-some million and declining over that 30-year period, and could have changed from being a tenant with a lease option to being the owner in the, say, 11th year, 15th year, 20th year. You just described it as kind of like a black and white. Yeah, we get it for $1 or for nothing at the end of the 30 years. But in fact, two things I would like you to provide information if you could. First of all, did it improve our monthly and annual outlay over, from the onset? And secondly, did we have the option to purchase it prior to the 30 years being up?
I do not believe we had an option to purchase it prior to the 30 years.
I believe we did.
It would have improved the rates from what we were paying with respect to our lease rates. But what's critical is that the structure presented to us would have resulted in a fixed rate at an interest rate over 7%. Our MICLA program at the time could have come in at about, I think it was below 6% at that time. I don't know the exact figure, but I know it's significantly lower, to the tune of the deal would have cost us $50 million more than what we could have achieved if we went through a MICLA program.
Over time?
Over time. Well, with the MICLA program too, when you go, this private entity again had a fixed rate for 30 years. Our MICLA program gives us the flexibility after the first 10-year period to go back into the financial community and refinance it to get better rates depending on what's available in the market. And I'm very, very serious as with now, you cannot beat our MICLA program. And I know there's a lot of concern about that.
Then that brings us back to our original point. Why didn't we move forward and bring it to this level so that we could say no? So that you could explain to us how we had better options and we should maybe pass this one up?
There's
on my time, please.
Fundamentally, the difficulty with the proposal last time was the appraisal was 14% less than what was being offered.
And in real dollars?
It was $82 million.
Versus 92.
It was $82 million at the time versus the 92 that was the asking
So
price.
the $10 million difference?
The difference is that the procedures that the city works under, given the advice of the city attorney, is that there is more than a 10% difference between the appraisal and the asking price. Unless there's extraordinary reasons, we can't do it. As this proposal made its way through the process, quite frankly, a process that was not well thought out. One is that the appraisal was too low. As it made its way to council, at this point in time, if it got to council, there had not been any due diligence done. There had not been the engineering, the environmental, and all the necessary backup work that had to be done in order for us to purchase and to be able to explain to council the necessity, the engineering, the mechanical, etc.
And that all happens at the commencement of a purchase or through the process?
It happens in the process, and the process was not well done. And I think that in part, the reason that we've done a better job this time, first off, realize that in this instance, the city gets 60 days in order to respond. We have just gone
Which was the same
through,
amount of time we had last time.
that's my understanding.
Yes, because I'd like to clarify on public record in the committee, that answer was not clear. It was said that we had less time last time. Quite frankly, we have the exact same amount of time from the moment of notice to the city that they're making an opportunity for us to purchase. My time, please.
And I think that the reason that we've done a better job this time is that we had just gone through the Broadway building. We had gone through the negotiations, we had gone through the process on due diligence, we knew about the environmental. I think the process, we had a map of how we approached it, and this isn't something that we planned and went out and decided that we wanted to buy this building as opposed to the Broadway building. We were notified, and we have a time limit, and here we are. The situation is that we're bringing to you the proposal. It's an up or down vote, and it's 60 days, as far as I know.
Okay, Mr. Fujioka, can you get back to my first question? I have a list, and I'm still on question number 1. On the Rule 23, did you finish clarifying why last time it didn't make its way through the process?
Ron touched based on part of it, and it was that difference between the appraisal of, first, I want to correct myself, the initial appraisal was 78, and the subsequent appraisal went to 92, and that 10% difference. It was
You mean
done-
82?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 82. On the day we were going to present the Rule 23, there was concerns from, and I may have to ask GSG to chime in at
Please
that
do.
point, and feel free to at any point to defend that particular deal. There was also concerns from my own office because we have a time frame that's required when we sell MICLA bonds. There's a minimum 30-day posting. Then it would have left us 15 days to do all the paperwork and prepare for the actual sale of the bonds. There were a number of factors where, in my opinion, we were cutting it very, very close at that particular time. And it's also my very, very strong opinion that that the previous owner used us as leverage to get an attractive deal with a company he actually sold it to. There were a ton of factors. What I do want to emphasize, and I know a lot of focus is being placed on what happened several years ago. Yes, there were some concerns. Yes, there were, the price was better. I think in the general real estate market, we've all had the personal experience where even for residential units, prices are better a couple of years ago. The issues and the facts and everything associated with the transaction for this building 2 years ago in itself does not mean today's deal is a bad deal. Yes, there are some problems. We'll be the first one to admit. Yes, there was a very truncated process. We were looking at it. I felt then we should have bought it. We didn't buy it. But what happened 2 years ago, if it bleeds over to our decision now to make what I think is a very sound investment for this city, I think that would be a mistake. And I want to put a wall between those transactions. And yes, we can talk about it. But today's deal is still, on its own merits, I think a good deal.
Well, with all due respect, and I'm going to push my button again because I'm just getting started, and I'm almost out of time. One thing that I would like to emphasize is that one of the reasons why you're urging us to look at this as a good deal today is because you're speculating, and this came out of committee and public record, you're speculating that in 2010, when our lease is up and we have the right to extend it to an additional 5-year option to stay in that building as a tenant, that is the prediction that that market is going to be a lot more expensive than today's market. But with all due respect, that's speculation. It's not fact, it's speculation. And 2 years ago, and less than 2 years ago, there was speculation that obviously in retrospect, that was a better decision back then to be made to purchase than today. and I'll reserve my questions for my next time.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Mr. Padilla and Mr. Cardenas for their statements this morning and for their questions. I particularly want to say, Mr. Cardenas, what you just said in conclusion, it is so right. Because a lot of us have been asking questions rhetorically this morning, why is this coming in at the last minute? And what you just pointed out is, wait a second, that's actually a false construction. This is not the last minute. The city's lease, which you would agree with me are at an optimal rate, right? Cities at below market rate, doesn't run out for another 6+ years. 6 years. The gun to the head that you're talking about this morning is the owner saying, hey, city, here's the price. Buy it now or else, right? But the city isn't going anywhere for 6 years on this building, lease-wise, right?
Maybe longer.
True.
True.
Just to answer so everyone can hear.
Yes.
Okay. So it is not the case, use it or lose it. It is not the case, buy it now or forever hold your peace. I want you guys to answer the question. Mr. LaBonge and Ms. Hunter, explain what Mr. Cardenas was asking about.
I think what General Services and our real estate experts are really looking at is that we are going to stay longer in that building. And I know Councilman Cardenas has concerns about whether or not the lease rate will hover, skyrocket past $3 a square foot. But we've hired some real estate experts in the downtown area, Studley, to be our representatives and, more importantly, advise us on what the real estate market will be like. And there are a lot of factors, and I can have them come to the table, there are a lot of factors that show that real estate in the downtown area is a favorable and something that everyone's speculating
And
on.
I understand
And we
that.
could put ourselves in danger of being in a situation where the leasing account, where a lot of the chairs have talked to me about reducing, could go up, or it's above our 30 million. And that's been a big concern for every council person here, that we don't continue to pay lease costs over a long period of time.
There's another fact, and I understand this argument. This building will be sold. Whether or not it's sold to us, this building will be sold. It was bought at 92. Someone's going to buy this building for at least 125, and if we get into a comparative process, it may even be more, but someone will buy it for 125. I go back to a comparison about residential units. If someone buys a house for a certain amount and subsequently it's sold for a much higher amount, the new landlord will raise the rent for that piece of property to ensure he or she can meet their debt service. That's a given. And whether or not, excuse me, sir, but whether or not in today's market, do we see out in the community, do we see another building of this size, 600,000 square feet, being built somewhere in Los Angeles? We do not see that in the horizon.
But the city is locked into this lease rate until 2010. And so what you're asking the council to do this morning is make a $125 million bet about what the real estate market in downtown will be like in 2010. That's what you're asking us to do. And in my view, given the sort of rushed manner in which this has been presented, we're not in a position to make that bet. One other question I want to ask you was, there was a gentleman who was at the table when this was in committee. I don't see him at the table today. And he made representations to the council about whether this was a good deal. It was not disclosed at that time to me that that gentleman is on commission. Could you please disclose the nature of his compensation? I'm not casting aspersions. It was not disclosed, and it ought to have been disclosed. Tell us what the story is there.
Studley will be paid commission through the seller of it after the sale. And I need to get... This is Arnold Swaneveld. He's our real estate expert who's been working with us for the last 5 years, and he can quickly go through the structure of the deal.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot personally. I just think we need to get that fact on the table. We need to understand.
Arnold Swaneveld representing Julian Studley. To answer your question directly, I have been working on behalf of the Department of General Services since 1996 under multiple contracts that have been extended over years and renewed, recompeted. The terms of our contract, both on a lease or a purchase acquisition basis, are pursuant to terms set forth by the city. As it relates to this type of an acquisition, our contract provides that we're entitled to be paid a commission, which ranges up to 3% depending on the sales consideration by the seller, which is typical for transactions like this in the market. On this particular transaction, the landlord has agreed to 0.75% as a fee.
I'm very pleased that Mr. Cardenas and I have talked about this, and we agree that this is not the proper way for the city to do business. We've put a motion in today, Mr. Cardenas and I, that will direct GSD to work with the controller in the future to contract with an independent firm, flat fee basis, to get real estate advice. Because when you put yourself in the position of getting your advice from someone who's on commission, it's very hard for me to go tell my constituents that the city's getting the best independent advice. And that is just a general public policy matter. That motion's been put in today. Mr. Deaton, can you tell me a little more about your concerns about the city maintaining Class A office space? I mean, you certainly had some. You made light of it, but what are those concerns? Maintain Class A office space to hold
For the
out
most
to
part, the concern is that our role would change, and as opposed to, for the most part, we are either the users of a building, we lease the building, or we own the building and run the building. We usually have, our job has never, not never, but very seldom have we become a landlord, except in the case of harbor airports, certain properties in the Owens Valley and the Pueblo.
Okay. And this type of office space is different, right? This is Class A office space. And so if the city doesn't maintain it in Class A style, the value of the property and the rents the city could get would be adjusted downward accordingly, right?
Right.
So this is something the city hasn't done so far.
That has not been an enterprise that we have engaged in, and in fact, if the council votes today, as I was thinking this morning, I probably will come back with recommendations later on to create a trust fund and to create another kind of a financial situation on this particular building.
And finally, on the question of the guarantees, Mr. Deaton, I'm a little concerned here because you've told me that the city's not going to get an A-level guarantee from the seller as it did with respect to the Broadway building, but you're telling me that from the city's standpoint, there really isn't that much to worry about. That's essentially what you and the engineer have decided.
Well, having not been involved in the purchase of that many buildings, to classify the guarantee we got on the Broadway building as an A or a Z would not be something.
It's better.
We negotiated my office and General Services and City Attorney and CEO long and hard to get that particular guarantee. And what it says is that if we find something in the first year, we have basically unlimited, that they're aware of, we would have unlimited dollar amount to go back on them to correct that problem. My discussions with the Bureau of Engineering yesterday based on...
They said it was 9 months and $750,000.
Right. 9 months and $750 instead of 1 year and unlimited. My discussions with the Bureau of Engineering yesterday based on the due diligence study, based on our experience with that building, and the nature of the unknowns that are left in the building other than mechanical and electrical, which they are completely comfortable with, revolve around structural. During all day yesterday, Bureau of Engineering individuals were making calls to structural engineers in the city that are very familiar with this building and other buildings. And their conclusion was that, and perhaps we could have the engineers say that, but that the only outstanding issue that they felt was, other than a little bit of preventative maintenance, was the structural and seismic They were not concerned that the only possibility of us exercising that within 1 year was there would be a 7.0 earthquake practically on top of the building.
Well, and I appreciate their expertise, and I certainly appreciate their good faith efforts, but going back to the last minute nature of this transaction, phone calls made yesterday afternoon to get some assurance on whether you're making a correct $125 million decision, it doesn't give me the comfort level that I would like to have before making this decision. And so I guess I'm left with sort of a sense that it's deja vu all over again, but at least with respect to the Transamerica purchase, we really kicked the tires there. And
Mr.
Laura
Weiss.
Chick brought, I'm concluding, and Laura Chick brought in an independent, unrelated financial firm to scrub everything. We're nowhere near there today, and I can't support this purchase as I couldn't in committee.
Just have one comment. I agree with basically what you said relative to Laura Chick and the controller, but what Laura Chick and the controller's outside auditor said, for the record, was that the analysis that our office and the CAO's office had done was absolutely correct.
Thank you.
We
Mr.
spent
Parks.
$400,000 for that validation, so.
Just for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fujioka, would you repeat the amount that we spent on that audit?
About $400,000 for that, to validate the work done by your offices, the various offices here.
Thank you. I would just like to say that in looking at this in committee, and I think in the final analysis, there's certain numbers that I think we have to be aware of. As someone mentioned, if we maintained our lease for 6 more years, we would spend almost $35 million in 6 years, and all we'd end up with is a receipt. We'd have no equity in the building. The other issue, the number that's important, is we have a tenant there paying $7 million in rent. Our $5 million puts it over the debt service for the loan. The debt service is only $10 million. So if we put our $7 million that we get in rent, plus our $5 million that we're paying in rent, you've bought the building. And so in the final analysis, after you add the Class A maintenance service, we're going to come out of this with a maximum of $3 million out of the general fund and own the building. And if the rate of increase on the building since 97 to today goes from 92 million to 125, we could, if it continues that rate, we'll own a building that not only is Class A, but will be worth a significant amount of money more than what we're paying now. The other issue different from Transamerica, I believe this building is only 10 years old, as opposed to a 45 or 35-year-old building at Transamerica. So it's a totally different issue. Plus, Reggie, what have we spent to outfit this building since we've been in it? Do we know?
Figueroa Plaza?
Yeah.
I don't know all the costs, but it is quite significant.
We've spent millions of dollars, and we have 53% of the lease space now that we spent millions of dollars and have no intentions of moving. And so, again, we would not have to build anything out in building a building or leasing a building. And so I think it's a simple math equation that we have the ability to buy a building. It is not part of the general plan, and we don't have a general plan, but I don't think that we can ignore this purchase because we're upset that what didn't happen in 97, or we don't like the way the bureaucrats have brought it, or it didn't give us enough time. This body, several years ago, was about to spend $40 million to build a police academy. Ruth Galanter walked in one day and said, don't spend the $40 million, I can buy a building for $16 million on Manchester. And it was purchased in a month. And we saved that amount of millions of dollars, not a part of a plan, not a part of a long-term scope of these issues, just a matter of a building came available and we purchased it. And again, I think we have to emphasize, we rely on Bureau of Engineering, CAO, CLA for a great number of things, and they've not misled us. We scrubbed that other deal for days, spent $300 and some odd thousand dollars to come back and say to them, you did a good job. And I think that's $300,000 that we could have put into shrubbery repair, slurries of streets, we could have gotten some trees trimmed, and we could have bought, I think, 30 police officers, if I'm not mistaken. So these are things, positions. So these are things that I think this is going to cost us more money to ignore it than to get upset about the 5 people at the front desk, why they didn't buy it earlier, what the timeline was. And we will be paying more money in the future for things we think are important than the debate that we're having today. We have spent more money in other issues with a consent vote that we all had concerns about, more so than what we're dealing today, which we're going to get the return on. So I would say that we should run and try to buy it, as opposed to continuing spending $60 million a year in lease money that we cannot afford. And after spending the $60 million, again, all we get at the end of the year is a receipt. We have no equity in any of the buildings that we're leasing. So I would suggest that we step aside, step back, not get upset that it's late in the time, but figure out how much money we're going to save, and the long term, how much money we're going to save. And then at the end, we'll own the building.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Next up is Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. I almost just want to say ditto, because that was almost the exact same notes I had here Mr. Parks just brought out. In committee, I was very marginal on this, and I was as mad as Mr. Cardenas and Mr. Weiss at the way this is brought forward. And I think it goes back to the discussion many of us had, and that is we don't have a strong infrastructure plan ahead of us. Ms. Gruhl and I have been working on a motion. I just talked to her. We've got to get that on the boards and get that done to establish an infrastructure planning commission that brings to us a long-term plan on all these issues. That's another issue for another day. I am as upset as Mr. Weiss is and everybody else is about this, having to make a quick decision like this and not having a chance to really look at all the implications of it. But again, that's chaff. That's external to the issue. What is the issue here is it in our best interest as elected officials, as the fiduciary responsible persons to look for the city's treasury and protect it and use it wisely. Is this making dollar and cents decision? And I think Mr. Parks brought out those numbers, so let's do them one more time. How much are we how much are we paying every year to lease the facility over there now?
$5.6 million.
$5.6 million in rent to the building now.
Correct.
Half of the building we rent, just about.
A little over 50%. Yes.
A little over 50% we're renting today.
Today.
How much have we invested in that building, particularly in the one-stop center, to make it usable for us?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but I would imagine it's in the millions.
It was certainly in the millions, because the one-stop alone was in the millions. So we've invested millions in that building already for our use. We're putting in $5.2 million a year now to lease the building. And
Correct.
we get nothing for it other than a receipt, as Mr. Parks says.
Correct.
The other tenants in the building that have long-term leases, how much are they paying in leases?
$7.8 million.
7.8. So our amount and their amount comes out to $13.5 million a year, guaranteed investment that comes off the cost of the property if you buy it. What do we have to pay to service our purchase of it?
Operating expense and to service the debt is $16.8 million.
16.8 to service the debt. No, I'm talking about just to service the purchase, not operational issues.
The debt, $6.8 million in debt
6.8.
service.
So you're simply positive on the net. No matter what you do, we make money on the deal. No question about it. We make money on this deal.
Correct.
Okay. As a person who has joined so many of you out there saying we need more cops, we need more services, how can you turn down the opportunity to put a net positive to the city's general fund? This is net positive money. As a businessman, I can tell you I would never, ever turn down a deal like this. As much as I might dislike the people bringing me the deal, it is a good deal. We make a profit on this in our bottom line to the general fund, which lets you go out and hire the more cops you keep talking about, lets you put more firefighters on the street like you keep talking about, and you make a serious commitment to those issues we all say are important to the people we represent. This bottom line, and Mr. Cardenas, you more and more than anybody, because you're a businessman too, is a net positive to our bottom line. As a businessman, you can't turn down a deal like that, even if you don't like the guys bringing it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Labange.
We should run over to Figueroa.
Before Mr. Labange speaks, can I make a real quick correction? But we're verifying right now, but I understand the Controller's Office has called down to the chamber and said, and corrected my math and said I was mistaken, and that audit costs approximately $60,000, so I stand corrected.
They're rather significant. Mr. Labange.
Madam President, I just want to ask a question. Mr. Parks, you're head of the Finance Committee. Mr. Parks, I want Mr. Parks, if you would just stand there, which is real important. Members, Mr. Parks also has 40 years' experience with the City of Los Angeles. He told of a great analogy of a former councilwoman, Ruth Galanter, walking in here and saying, we don't need to spend $40 million for a training academy. There's a building on Manchester, which I believe the Amundsen Foundation purchased for the city, or enhanced for the city.
Got the naming rights.
Enhanced for the city. And we saved a lot of money. Opportunity came up. Opportunity came up. Jack Weiss, you're head of the General Services. Have you been looking over this process all the time as the chair of how we purchase buildings, how General Services works? All right, but anyway, here's the point I want to make. Jack, you respect a lot of things. Here's a man who has 40 years' experience, the head of our Finance Committee, said this is a good thing. This is a very good thing to do, to purchase, because the long range. And where are we going to be in a short period of time? And if I'm correct at the numbers, Mr. Fujioka, it's $3 million. It's a $3 million difference as far as the rent and the rent we will receive.
3.4 million. Yes.
3.4 million. It's a very good deal for the future of this city to purchase this property. I like what the CAO said about what his parents taught him about owning land. And I will tell you, I worked for Richard Riordan, and I had a great job with Richard Riordan. But one thing I didn't like about his administration, he liked to sell a lot of land. And now we're having to buy a lot of land because we should have the less rent. Richard, I hope you're not mad at me for criticizing you. But he just called me. Yeah, no, Eric, I won't repeat that. So, the point I'm trying to make, members, you got to look beyond our time. You got to look at the time that we're serving. What are we doing? Look at the people who fought to build this city hall. They were criticized in the 1920s. Why build a great city hall? But they did because they wanted to have a place that is the people's building. Now we built a facility interiorly, Reggie, right, with the one stop and everything else that's there, that we could purchase. We could purchase for the long-range health and interest of our city. And we could also take other tenants. We could receive revenue. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is in there. So the opportunity comes up. And if you've talked to anybody, and I know some of you are in real estate, in past experiences, you have to move quickly. And we should have moved before, but we didn't. Now that it came around again, and it doesn't come around often. And this will be good for the health of the city. It'll be good for the health of the people who work here, and it will be important for us. So I say strongly vote yes on the purchase of this building. And thank you.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I have just 4 questions, actually 3. One of them has been answered. Well, maybe I'll come back to it. In the interim, I voted for this in committee. In the interim, I've tried to talk to folks who are real estate professionals as well, who do this for a living, people who buy and sell buildings, similar to what I did last time around with Transamerica. My first question is for anybody up there. I've had a couple people tell me that this isn't really Class A. Are they, and these aren't people with a stake one way or the other, they weren't people one way. Is this borderline Class A?
Anna Zwaneveld. The Class A standard is somewhat subjective, frankly. I mean, the one that's most material would relate to the manner in which the building is constructed, and by all measures, this is Class A construction. It's steel moment frame construction. It's completely granite clad. It has all those typical elements. The debatable part would relate to location, because from a central business district perspective, the project's location on the fringe may not be optimal, but its location from the city's perspective is actually pretty good. So there's no one place that you can go to as it relates to defining Class A, but that's perhaps what you're picking up on.
Is there anything the interior that you use to determine Class A or not? I mean, the quality of the interior of the building as well? Or is that more superficial and it's not really?
Certainly the quality of the tenant improvements, also the tenant base itself, who else is in there, can also be criteria.
Okay. I think the maintenance stuff was answered. That was second. For our city team, what is this situation similar to Transamerica? Then if we miss this deadline, it could result in something, but it doesn't inherently have to. We're not knocked out of the negotiations. I mean, I've heard folks say, okay, immediately somebody will come in and buy it in this market. Transamerica, as was communicated to me, there was a bigger gap between the price that we had locked in and what market rate should be, which would have led me to think that in the time that we were debating, it would have been even easier for them to get somebody to jump in immediately. How does this compare to that? And as we're deliberating this, the decision that we make today obviously has consequences, but how final are those consequences? It begins to open a door, but how convinced are you that somebody immediately for sure tomorrow rushes in and gets this?
It is our understanding that the owner of the building has in fact had some potential offers, and that if we don't consummate this deal today, because this is the last day of our option period, that in fact they will exercise that, and we're pretty confident from our real estate experts that they will get something well above north $125 million. So they...
And I appreciate what you're saying. Our understanding, what we hear, probably. And I appreciate confidentiality and other stuff. Is this worst case scenario? Are we hearing this from other buyers? Are we... You know what I mean? Like, it's not difficult to hear those sorts of things. And certainly from a seller, they're going to be telling somebody, I mean, if I'm buying a house, somebody in a hot neighborhood, I'm sure the seller's going to tell me, I got people lined up for this, put in your bid.
I can speak to that. The seller retained secured capital, more or less contemporaneous with the time frame when they delivered the offer or the purchase notice to the city. And we know that they've been actively, there's a package on the street that has been reviewed.
So unlike Transamerica, and sorry to interrupt you, where they're talking about putting the package out on the street, and I believe they hadn't done it.
It's on the street.
This one has been on the street for how long?
60 days at least. And I've been contacted by a number of third-party appraisers who are working on behalf of other prospective purchasers.
Have they shared with you what they're appraising this at?
No, but they're inquiring as to the status. I mean, they know that we're ahead of them with regard to this option, and I've heard as many as 12 prospective purchasers being pre-qualified that are ready to proceed at the point that this doesn't pan out.
And this doesn't reflect your expertise or your work at all, but for the city family, I think it is what Mr. Weiss said, extremely important that we know what people's individual stakes are in giving us advice. I based my decision in committee on the advice that we had, and this wasn't that you misrepresented yourself, but that we were paying somebody either on retainer or for advice, not that there's a financial stake. It's like there's lobbyists who come here who are good lobbyists, but obviously when they're lobbying for somebody that they get paid by, you just take that advice in a different way. Can we make sure that does not happen again, that especially as new faces and new people come here, but that is crystal clear?
Understand?
Yes, we can.
Understand.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Villaraigosa is next on the queue, who will be followed by Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Reyes, and then Mr. Cardenas and Mr. Weiss for a second time. Mr. Villaraigosa. If he has stepped out for the moment, let me recognize Councilmember Gruhl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have to tell you, colleagues, this discussion has gone, I think, in some bizarre directions in many ways. This isn't personal. This is each of us having an opinion. We all want, Mr. Smith, more police officers. We all want more firefighters. Mr. Parks, we all want to be able to have more money in our accounts. That is, I don't think we differ in our opinions about trying to do what's the right thing. But I have been concerned about people's discussion today about one person is right, one person is wrong, or we don't believe in what's best for the city if we disagree. And I think that's wrong. I think it's the wrong direction of this council to go. And Tom's been looking at me as to why I'm upset, because we disagree on this, and there's no doubt about it. But it's not personal, and it's not personal around this room. And I want to just have all of you remember that, because it's going to be a long 9 months and discussion about a lot of different issues on this council. And sorry, I just, for a moment there, got passionate about what I think this council's supposed to do is we can honestly disagree and still have the same commitment for what we think the city should do. Now, I challenged at the time the Transamerica deal because the first people who went in said we were going to put a police station there and it was going to be our headquarters. And I thought that we changed direction midstream and felt it was important and not spending. We were guaranteed by the Comptroller's office because they came back with a figure at one point that it would be $300,000. And I said, as did my colleagues, Councilmember Garcetti and Councilmember Weiss, no. That's not what we're going to do. That's not what we were asking for. We want to have it limited to some specific questions. And some questions we talked to Ms. Hahn had concerns as well at the time. But we came back and we made a decision with the facts before us. My concern as we're standing here today is that we have to decide as a city if we are going, what we want to do, where our city departments are going to be. Are we going to be investors? Because if what we're really looking at is where we can make the most money, then I can look at a lot of buildings that we can buy where we can make a lot of money. We can do that. But that's not the role of this city, is just to make money off of real estate deals. It's to have a plan. I'd like to stand here today and say I feel comfortable buying this building, that it fits within the plan that we've decided as to what we're going to do in the Civic Center, what's going to happen on Grand Avenue, what's going to happen north of the DWP building, whatever it was going to be. I want to do that. And Mr. Deaton was right. He came over and told me and said, when you have a first right of refusal, it is 60 days, and you have 60 days to do that. I completely understand that. But as I said to Mr. Cardenas when we were talking about this, I remember I was young and a little naive, but smart enough to remember when I went to go purchase a car. And I know this is a little bit different. It's not quite, I didn't spend hundreds of millions of dollars on my car. But I went in with the same seriousness of I'm going in, I'm making an investment, and I'm making a decision what's best for me and my financial situation. And they told me, you have to make a decision today. My supervisor said, the deal's only good today. What's going to happen tomorrow, I can't guarantee. Well, that's a risk that we take. But I think that as we make the decision today, there's no disagreement about what we all want to do what's best for the city. And it's not that we don't trust you all. I want you to feel comfortable. We ask for your help and support every time. Take your advice and make sure. All I'm saying today is I have concerns about this and don't feel comfortable today voting for it. And yes, that may mean that we don't make as much money as we would like, but I'd like to see the big picture and the plan, and that's what Mr. Weiss and I talked about before. So let's not make this personal. Let's not make it that one of us cares more or less about what the money's going to be spent for. So if we disagree on this vote, we disagree because we have a different strategy, but ultimately we'd like to have more money for the city, we'd like to have our city employees in great buildings, and we'd like to do it in a quick and efficient manner. I chair audits and government efficiency, so it's a particular interest of me that we're being as efficient as we can. But just because we disagree doesn't mean that we're not on the same page.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
Thank you, Councilmember Gruhl, for your eloquence and on this issue, and I rise to in agreement with much of what Councilmember Gruhl has said and some of the other council members, including Councilmember Cardenas. You know, you kind of feel like you're at this big Amway meeting or a pyramid scheme kind of thing. If you don't take this great deal right now, you're going to lose everything you got, and we're not going to be able to take advantage of this great, wonderful deal. And I'm concerned about that. I don't buy the idea that the process doesn't matter. I don't buy the idea that our responsibility here is to deliberate with as much information as possible, that wherever possible, we should encourage and insist that the city officials bring us an issue with due time to deliberate, to ask the questions, to come back in the way that is thoughtful. I have a great problem with this. It's kind of like, as someone said, one of my council members said, I think it was Councilmember Padilla, would you buy a house like this if someone told you you have to buy this house right now, this minute, or you're going to lose the house? You know, well, maybe some of us have, and sometimes you regret doing it when you do that. It seems to me we need to be a little more deliberate here for all of the reasons. I'm also concerned about the issue that was raised by Councilmember Weiss. You have a contractor, Julian Studley Incorporated, who is advising us, and it will actually benefit from that advice. We haven't bifurcated this process in a way. You have someone who advises us, and then someone else who may be working, getting the deal and benefiting from the deal. I'm not suggesting that there's any wrongdoing on your part, but I am concerned when there isn't that kind of a wall between the two. And it seems to me it's something that we have to look at as a public policy matter, whether in the future we want to separate those functions. And so for those reasons, I think while this may turn out to be a great deal, Mr. Garcetti said something. It's not an automatic that if we reject this today, that this deal won't be available 2 or 3 or 4 weeks from now. But what will happen is we're going to send a message that we want a more deliberative process. We want more time to reflect and evaluate and discuss this matter. And if we lose this great deal, it may be that another great deal that's evaluated more deliberatively is available. So for those reasons, I am going to vote no.
Mr. Reyes?
Thank you, Council President. The one area of concern I have yet to hear about, and it really bothers me, is what happens to our constituents. We have building and safety there. We have planning department there. We went through a lot of procedures to put together a DASH system. We've changed work programs, work schedules. That's staff time coming and going. There's these issues that talk about how we move process. We keep saying we're going to be business friendly. We keep saying we're going to make things clearer. We're going to make things more simple. If they're not going to be in this building, where are they going to go? If they're going to move, then how are our constituents going to know where to go for those plans, the plan checks? We are getting awards. Building and Safety has gotten awards for their services. Every time they go for a plan check, they've got a very elaborate computerized system and how you move from desk, counter A to counter B. These are complicated processes. We're barely beginning to get to the point where people know where to go. So when I start hearing we don't have a real estate plan, we don't have a strategy, we don't know what function be performed where, we're talking about a major turbulence here. We're talking about a major domino effect. So I'm wondering if we're capturing the cost of moving folks, the opportunity cost of time taken to reconfigure, regenerate a whole process that's been computerized, a whole process that's been established by those who come and use our friendly services. So I'm not hearing that discussion. I haven't heard anything about that. But the point is, if we move...
Yeah, I think that just a point of information, that we have a 10-year lease that will not be disrupted if for some reason someone else bought it in that period of time. So they'd still be there for that 10 years.
Still stay? But aren't we talking about buying other buildings so we don't have to be paying that lease?
Right. Right. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I wasn't there in committee. I don't see in the report.
The situation is that in the near term, in building and safety, their lease expires, or city's lease for them expires in August of 2010. So for that period of time, we will not be moving building and safety. as I indicated, one of the reasons to buy the building is that if you, at 2010, either it could cost you more, or you might have to move them, and there would be relocation cost, and the estimates of that are someplace between $15 and $20 million at that point in 2010.
I'm sorry, so for relocation cost, how much?
$15 to $20 million to move.
On top of the act?
Right.
Okay.
So it's the, but we will not be doing anything in the immediate. Building safety won't move for 6 years, whether you buy it or you don't buy it.
Regardless.
Yeah.
How about the planning department? Is there still planning?
No,
there?
I assume the only people on this that are currently there are Department of Transportation. Department of Transportation, once the Caltrans building is completed, they're going to move to 2 or 3 floors in the Caltrans building. We will backfill this space with some other people.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Cardenas? For a second time?
You know, I keep looking up at the clock, and I keep realizing how much time we're spending on this. And quite frankly, the amount of time we're spending on this is nothing compared to the amount of time we should have spent on it leading into today, and how much ever time it takes to get the facts out on the table. Whether people want to call it rhetoric or not, the fact of the matter is, I think it is relevant that in front of the full view of the public, we covered, and perhaps we'll cover a little bit more, the debate that should have occurred when we had the opportunity to either purchase this building for $30 million less of the people's money, or even move into a position where on a monthly basis with a lease purchase option, with options to either get out of the lease during the 30-year period and or buy it during the 30-year period. That was very real, but that debate didn't happen. So here we are. I happen to have, I agree with Wendy Gruhl and Jack Weiss that we need to have a plan about what we're buying and what we're not buying and why we're buying it, why that particular building or property puts us in a better position. If I'm not mistaken, in the committee, the joint committee hearing we had the other day, it was mentioned about, and the question was posed to those people who are here today before us testifying, what is our overall city plan when it comes to, do we rent, do we purchase, do we build a structure, etc.? Do we have a comprehensive, notable, in-writing plan for the city of Los Angeles?
No.
No, not yet. And we're hopefully very soon will present a report to the Joint Age Committee and ITGS on the audits that were done on us, and specifically in there, we'll address the strategic plan for all city departments, including the proprietaries. And we're looking at estimates that it may take upwards to a year to do. We'll go out and contract out, get the appropriate firms that are skilled at doing that, so they can do the kind of analysis that you need to do the long-range planning.
Well, the reason why I bring that up, because I think it's relevant for this discussion. I have a document from the City of Los Angeles General Services Department Asset Management Division, and it says acquisition of properties from July 1st, 2002 to 8/12/2004, basically a 2-year period. And we've actually acquired, without a plan, an overall city plan, $117 million in properties. And it spans over several dozen properties. One property for $35 million, very high-profile purchase. Another property at $36,900,000. Another property at $57 million, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You want to correct me on something?
Those are principally related to our bond programs, Prop Q and Prop F. We're buying land to build our animal shelters, and then buying land for both fire and police facilities. So,
in each of those cases, in Prop Q and in Prop F, and there is a specific plan, because in the bond issue, it speaks to individual fire stations, individual animal shelters, individual police stations, that in fact that station is going to be replaced or refurbished depending on the situation. If it's going to be replaced and it's in a certain area, it has to be within area, et cetera, et cetera. And then there is a disposition. The master plan that I said that we don't have one for is basically for municipal facilities, office space, and general purpose office buildings, as opposed to fire stations, et cetera.
All right, forgive me because I didn't know that that was the category of this, and it doesn't say that on the title. And the reason why I didn't think that would be the case is because was Transamerica purchased for $35,700,000? Was that bought with proposition money?
No, I'm just saying that most of those purchases.
Okay, most.
No, not all of them, because there's other
Okay.
purchases.
Many of them.
Right. I would say most of them are either bond or Prop K.
Okay, most, not all, okay.
No, not all.
At the onset of that comment, I thought it was, you were correcting me and saying that this list is...
No. As you said, the 35 million was a high-profile, non-bond funded.
Exactly. Now, also, I'd like to find out, why don't we have a CLA report on this very critical issue? My time, please.
Usually, I respond to, when I'm asked for a report, not necessarily that we, in fact, the situation with, as opposed to the Transamerica building, where I was directed to do the transaction by the council and carry it through the system, and that's what I did. There was a council action requesting myself and the city administrative office to do Transamerica.
Ron, I think you need to clarify that you don't normally bring recommendations on real estate. It's usually the engineer,
That's
CAO, and general services. So unless otherwise directed, CLA doesn't normally do the report.
Okay, so next time we run into this situation, I need to specifically say, I'd like a CLA report, and then you can tell me why or why not, or how long it would take, or what have you, right?
Right.
Okay, now I know. I'm new to this place. In addition to that, what I'd like to do is ask you a few more questions, but since I'm down to 3 seconds, I will push my button again.
Members, it's clear that we don't have, I think, 8 votes to do anything today. If we consider a motion to put this over on Tuesday, we will perhaps have more members. I don't think if we don't do anything with 8 votes, it goes over till Tuesday anyway. It may be past the deadline, but we would know come Monday if anything else has happened or if we can continue to debate it. And perhaps at that time we can have our people ask whether or not there's any possibility of extension. But is it anyone's pleasure at this point? We can continue debating it.
Is there a second to that?
There is a motion to continue it.
There is a motion?
Is there a second?
Just as I just would like to clarify, if there is a vote that does not have 8 votes, just so you understand, it will go over to Tuesday regardless. So what the president was saying that is if the vote for continuance fails, if the vote to receive and file fails, it'll go over to Tuesday.
Let's try the motion to continue it to Tuesday. That was made by Mr. Labange.
Is that in order?
A motion and second.
It wasn't.
I'm sorry, Mr. Parks seconded it. All right, open the roll on continuing till Tuesday. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
5 ayes, 6 noes.
All right, then we will continue with the discussion at this point. Mr. Weiss.
I yield the first minute or two to Mr. Smith.
Thank you for that courtesy, Mr. Weiss. I very much believe if you look at the bottom line, this is still a good deal. However, I'm going to change my vote, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to vote no on this, and I'll tell you why. A statement was just made in response to someone else's question, which tweaked my ears, and it's a document I had not seen, nor did it come up in committee, that this is what we call a moment-framed building. Now, to most of you, I'm sure that means absolutely nothing. However, I've been in very close consultation with Dr. Thomas Heaton from Caltech and Dr. Lucy Jones from the U.S. Geological Survey about moment-framed buildings. And moment-framed buildings are not earthquake safe. In fact, I'm very concerned about the people we have in that building at this time. Moment-framed building is something that actually we have been discussing in committee, that they need an ordinance in the city of LA to take a look at moment-framed buildings because pardon me? The weld spot on moment-frame building is what the concern is. Moment-frame buildings were buildings that were built at the time they were the state-of-the-art, great idea, where you put a building up and they're welded at site. Those are not flexible in an earthquake. And they're very grave concerns, and we've done tests at Caltech that show moment frame buildings in floors 7 through 13 will snap and break in a major earthquake. And our major earthquake concern in Los Angeles region at this time is on the Elysian Park Fault, which runs greatly through Mr. LaBonge's district right into downtown LA, and those buildings are at serious risk. And moment frame buildings will not sustain anything greater than a high 6 or a 7-point earthquake. And so with that information in hand now, I am going to change my vote to no.
Mr. LaBonge. You do have a minute left on your time.
I do think we should vote on this today, colleagues. I think it's important to vote. The purchase option expires in a day or two anyway, Friday today. And so I'd like to have an up-down vote, and I will move to receive and file the item. I can do that now, or I can do it after our vote. Why don't I do it now? Move to receive and file the
Okay,
item.
there is a motion to receive and file. Mr. LaBonge is the next speaker.
Do they need a second on that motion?
Was there a second on?
No, there's no
Okay,
second.
Mr.
Mr.
Cardenas,
Card.
but we still will continue the debate because we have the committee
Okay.
report, the motion to receive and file would be
All right.
first, et cetera. But
I
Mr.
shouldn't have. I
LaBonge.
made a mistake there. It's called a slow pitch over the plate. Mr. Deaton, should we buy this building?
Yes.
Mr. Fujioka, should we buy this building?
Yes.
Okay, these are the two people who do it day in and day out for us. It's very important to hear that from them. Thank you, Greg, for your insight on that as well. But I'm sure if you looked at every building downtown in the area, there's some challenges because technology improves all the time. It makes sense to buy this building. And also, members, if we really, and I think if you really look at things, you talk about no plan, articulate it yourselves as we work together to try to find a plan. This is a civic center. This is within the civic center sphere. This is within the area of where the transit is. This is a building that we have a lot of people in right now working, and it makes economic sense to buy the building. Vote yes and buy 221 and 223 North Figueroa.
Mr. Cardenas for the third time.
Thank you. Hopefully I won't have to go for a fourth. Let me just make some points I'd like to bring out to the public's attention that were made and answered by the people before us in committee. Within the last 2 years, we did have a couple of opportunities to purchase this building. There's a difference of people are saying, is that relevant or not? I think it's relevant because we are the same occupiers. We have very similar opportunities to purchase the building, and quite frankly, a big city like this has a lot of resources, and when we want to get creative, when we really want something, we get it done. And that didn't happen in the last 2 years when we had an opportunity to purchase it or get into a perhaps better position and saving the city perhaps $30+ million. In addition to that, I'd like to ask the question, simple answer, is this a buyer's market or is this a seller's market for buildings like this?
Right now, it's a seller's market.
It's a seller's market. We all agree it's a seller's market. And in this case, we're buyers. And also, the fact of the matter is we can speculate or contemplate whether or not in 2010, when our lease could or would change, would it be a seller's market or a buyer's market? Who knows? It's all speculation. We speculated 2 years ago and erred on the side of saying, maybe we'll pass up this opportunity to buy it. But that's all speculation. That's not fact. Do we make good landlords? That's a direct question. Who wants to answer that? Does the city of Los Angeles make good landlords? Because we're only occupying 50% or so of this building.
I think we do well at the harbor and airports.
That answers my question. We're not the best landlords. We are pretty good at occupying buildings, but we're not necessarily the best landlords. And we would be moving into a position of being landlords. I'd like to point something out that was omitted, and maybe because nobody pointed it out or asked the question. When you do become a landlord, if, for example, one of our tenants, say a big tenant's an entire floor, which is about shy of 20,000 square feet, if that company files bankruptcy, and then they're successful in that bankruptcy, they could actually occupy a portion of that building for many, many months, and we could never or would never recoup our losses. That's what happens when you're an owner doesn't happen to you when you're a tenant. So there are certain risks inherent in going from a tenant to being a landlord, and that wasn't talked about, and that wasn't put in the numbers. We're just looking at things very simplistically. How much is the rent? How much is the mortgage? How much would we save on a monthly basis? And by that perspective, looks really convenient, fine and dandy, but it's a lot more complicated than that when you become a landlord. Also, in addition to that, I'd like you to point out to me, and when they answer on their time, please, Madam President, when we were here talking about the Transamerica building, we went through with that. I had felt better about that after you convinced me that floor plates in excess of 40,000 square feet bring an efficiency for our city purposes much better than floor plates that are much less. Their time, please. Is that the case?
Within reason, someplace between 35 and 45,000 square feet is a more ideal floor plate. I don't know the floor plate.
It's 19,000.
19,000. The only reason...
In general.
In general. So, in general, I think that it would be better if we had a larger floor plate. The fact is that we have the people in there now would be the counteracting. It is a judgment call. I'm not trying to say otherwise.
Yeah, okay.
But I did mention the fact that when you are the owner, you have to contemplate vacancies, and if they're long-term vacancies, all the economics can go to...
Good, but the numbers weren't thrown out. It's just, but that's a point to be taken into consideration. If you don't mind, Madam President, I'll either push my button again or give me another minute.
Cardenas, you are the last speaker. I have two members who want to leave, and we're going to break a quorum. We still got other
60
items.
seconds. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Madam President. A couple of last points. In fact, Figueroa Plaza, in committee, I asked the specific question, is it less than optimum, the square footage of those floor plates, and the answer was yes, it is less than optimum. It's not exactly the ideal building that we would want to buy or maybe build for ourselves. That was said on the record, an answer to my question. Somebody's shaking their head no. I'm trying to do this in 60 seconds. Why are you shaking your head no?
Because a 19,657 square foot floor plate isn't inherently inefficient for your use there.
Well, with all due respect, I'm not going to argue with you here, but we can go check the transcripts of committee, and the answer was yes, it is less than ideal. With that, bottom line, maybe a good deal, maybe not. We have a decision to make here. I think we need to let all of our City of Los Angeles know that from here forward, we're going to deliberate these things, we're going to take them much more seriously, and we're not going to pass up opportunities like we allowed ourselves to do 2 years ago.
All right, members, this matter is now before us. I think the first matter before us is the motion to receive and file. If I can please have everyone paying attention to this. The motion is the motion to receive and file. If you want I'm going to recommend voting no too, but we've got a split recommendation. Vote, open the roll, Madam Clerk, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
7 ayes, 4 noes.
All right. Again, we do have the committee reports before us, which are available, but I think at this point there is not a majority, so this matter will just go over until Tuesday. No, I think lack of action puts it over. I'm going to excuse Councilmember Gruhl at this time, who asked for that earlier. Members, we have, I think, just 2 items or so left on the desk, as well as public comment. Mr. Clerk, let us adjourn the special session, special council meeting, and return to the regular session.
Item 1 was being held on the table after being reconsidered by Councilmember Reyes.
Mr. Reyes, item number 1.
Thank you, Council President. I know it's been a long afternoon. Item number 1, colleagues, I ask to be reconsidered. It speaks of building and safety. There needs to be a discussion between building and safety and Bureau of Engineering of how we're going to be processing these fees. I'm understanding that in the ordinance, we don't have a Rule 38 being implemented. There hasn't been any discussion on which municipal codes would be triggered to collect these fees. That dialogue never occurred. I'd like to request my colleagues, you can send it to Plum or back to Public Works, wherever it needs to go, We need some clarity as to how these ordinances need to be implemented, where the fees are going to be generated, and who's going to do the collection. Because right now, building and safety was not part of that discussion, and they don't feel it should be part of the building code itself.
All right, is Councilmember Villaraigosa present? All right, he is here in the hallways. We can still act on this. We have a request from Mr. Reyes to continue, to send this to Planning Committee. Is there any objection? Seeing none, that will be the order on item number 1. So it will go to committee and then referred back to council. Next item.
Item 17 was called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Councilmember Hahn, item 17.
Chair, this is about the No Child Left Behind Act, and as we all know, in 2002, Congress passed the No Child Left Behind Act, and it allocates funding for schools that need improvement. And under this law, children who attend program improvement schools are eligible for tutoring services free of charge to the family to help their children improving their homework, their reading, their writing, their math in the schools. But we have found out that LAUSD, who is sort of the overseer of some of the allocation of that money, that only 10% of the children in LAUSD took advantage of this incredible opportunity. And of the $60 million that can be spent in the LA Unified School District area, only 1.8 million of that was spent in helping these kids get tutoring. So we found out that one of the main reasons families did not participate is simply that they didn't know it exists. And I think nowadays that is a sin. That we've got this money, we've got tutoring free of charge, we can help kids with their homework, with everything they need, and they're not participating because they don't know about it. So I thought it would be a good idea if our city, along with the Commission for Children, Youth, and Families, could help coordinate an outreach program that tried to get as many of our kids into this free program as possible. They were also saying that there was a lack of facilities to have this tutoring take place. So again, it would be a good opportunity for our, whether it's Rec and Parks or whatever, to come forward with possible locations to do that. And I also suggested that in our housing authority developments might be a great place to have these after-school tutoring programs take place. So this motion really just asks for the Commission on Youth and Family to help coordinate this kind of outreach so that there's no reason that if kids if kids need this, that they're not participating in just because they don't know about it. So I hope you'll support me on that. I think this is a good idea.
Thank you, Councilmember Hahn. Seeing no one else wishing to comment on this, the matter is before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. We'll send that forthwith.
Item 36 was called special by Councilmember Garcetti.
Mr. Garcetti, item 36.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I will be brief. I would have let this go on consent, but I did not want to miss the opportunity for the public to spread the word about a reward motion of an unfortunate, tragic incident that happened in my district. On August 2nd, that was a week ago from this past Monday, a week before Monday, at about 8:40 p.m., there's a 73-year-old resident of my district, a woman who was killed in a traffic collision. A car, unidentified four-door sedan, hit her at the crosswalk of Vermont Place and Vermont Avenue, and the driver failed to stop and render any assistance and drove on. That would have been bad enough, but a second car came, a dark-colored minivan. Driver hit her while after she had hit the ground, dragged her for 85 feet, and also left the scene of the crime as well. The victim unfortunately sustained such excessive injuries that she died because of these two hit-and-run accidents. We are putting forward this reward motion for $25,000. If anybody a week ago from last Monday was close at around 8:40 p.m. to Vermont Avenue, Vermont Place, might know what either of those cars look like, or either of those folks who were in the cars would come forward, we would be able to deal with this matter and bring her family some relief. Thank you.
Thank you. We have this reward motion now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. I believe that now brings us to public comment. We do have some cards submitted, so let me call forward at this time someone who signed the card bewildered, or Lenore, is this person still in the audience? Lenore? If not, then we'll just make that part of the record. Don Garza?
You guys can come up here and stand next to me if you want, because I know you guys are next. Well, I appreciate you allowing me and others to come up here for public comment. Hi, Senor Antonio Villaraigosa. You are the man. You ended the bus strike. You are the man we come to when it comes to bus-related issues, and I saw you last week on the Orange Line. We want to go to dialysis. We want to go somewhere close when we're sick, and I'm going to come again and say this. The problem is now, I'm starting to see again, that our council offices are not coming to the people, the residents. They are going to the social service providers, expecting them to come to us to notify us of meetings, the people that vote in Central City East. That's a problem. That is a big problem because we vote. This year, we have the opportunity to vote for you, everybody in that district, everybody in that little area. We have that opportunity. We need, I talked with LA Dot. They're willing to have meetings with us. I'm going to invite, I just got appointed to the Transportation and Public Works Committee for the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. I'm going to start working on organizing. I'm going to start working on getting meetings together where you and Jan Perry can come down and talk to us about this issue, because as far as I'm concerned, in my neighborhood, it's split right down the middle between the 14th Council District and the 9th Council District. I personally would like to see, I don't care what's going on, I don't care about an election, I don't care about the gloves. I want the gloves off for everybody that's on here. We need both of you working together to help us in that neighborhood, because those social service providers love to dilute our voice because they have their hand out all the time. All we're asking for is a quality of life issue to help us get to the clinics on Washington Boulevard. That's all we're asking for, even to be able to go to the east side. And I'm going to ask again, and I'm going to keep asking, but the crying is over, and it's time to let these people talk.
All right. We will now hear from the South Central Farmers.
Muy buenas tardes, concejales, presidente municipal.
Municipal President and members of the board.
The translator, please speak to the microphone as well.
Como somos campesinos,
We are farm workers,
andamos luchando
and we are on a quest
que ustedes como autoridades
that you, as the authorities in charge,
tenemos esperanza de que los ayuden,
we have the hope that you will help us,
que los dejen las tierras que ya están cultivadas.
that you leave us the lands that are already cultivated.
Por eso andamos luchando, señores
That is our
gobernantes.
quest. Ladies and gentlemen, governors,
Ahora le pido a los concejales
now
que si
I would like to ask City Council that if you have
hacerme unas preguntas,
any questions to ask,
cómo se cultivan las tierras
how it is that we cultivate these lands,
y también sembrarlas,
and also how we plant them,
porque las plantas que nacen de chiquitos
because plants that are grown from seeds,
nacen como un niño,
they're born as children are born,
porque un niño recién nacido
because a newborn child,
se lo quitan a la mamá,
when it's taken from the mother,
esos niños no desarrollan.
those children don't develop.
Por eso las plantas sí son, señores,
That's how plants are, sir, ladies
y
and
les
gentlemen.
pido de favor que los ayuden
And I would ask you as a
como
favor
campesinos que somos.
that you help us as farmers that we are.
Las tierras ya están cultivadas.
The lands are already cultivated.
¿Por qué? Por
Why?
apuro sudor de la gente, de la frente del campesino.
Because we, the farm workers, have sweated over them.
Por eso, señores,
That's
queremos
why, ladies and gentlemen,
que haya producción
we would like there to be
y
production
alimentación
and food
para todo
for everyone.
sean jóvenes, sean señores grandes, sean niños.
Young people, elderly people, children,
Y muchas gracias.
and thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Maribel. I'm representing East Los Angeles College, and I'm a farmer as well. Me and my family have been farming in these lands for over 6 years, and this is another source that we get in our homes to feed our families, and we as well help a community as providers for food for them, and it's just, these lands are very precious to us because I've been there for over 6 years, like I said, and it's important. It's an important part of my life as well as my family and the community. And I don't see the point of taking the land away. We've been there for such a long period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, City Council. Again, my name is Nadine Diaz, and I'm here in support of the South Central Farmers on behalf of the graduate students at the University of Southern California. I would just like to state that we have been here since 9 o'clock this morning. The farmers wake up every day at 5:30, and if you can you please take into consideration that we are working class people. Many of them make less than $15,000 per year. So waiting until 2 o'clock to speak when they can be working at the farm and providing for their families or at their other jobs, please take that into consideration because it's not very respectable to do this to the people. We appreciate your time and we appreciate that. We hope that you will help us. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do normally try to take public comment period at the beginning, but when we have commissioners here and presentation days, we usually take those items first.
Understood. Thank you. Again, for the record, Los Angeles Land Use Coalition, my name is Miguel Ángel Pérez. Real quick and real short, aquí estamos y no nos vamos, tierra y libertad. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes the public hearing comment period for matters not on the agenda. Members, I believe we have lost a quorum. Members left. So if there are announcements, we can use this for announcement period. Everything else remaining on the desk will remain until Tuesday. Any announcements, member? Seeing no announcements, we'll hold adjourning tributes until Tuesday for official adjournment. We are adjourned.